everybody. It is post-season, and it's never too soon to start talking about Season 8. We know that it's going to be a while, but there's lots to talk about, lots to do, lots to say, lots of different opinions to gather. And for that reason, we have brought in some guests. And of course, we have a different setup, as you can see here as well. We've got Ashea and Sean on camera at the same time with me. I'm in a History of Westeros sandwich, which is pretty amazing. And heck, you can see our legs. That's different, isn't it? Wow.
Dancing legs.
Yes, dancing legs. That's right. We also already have a super chat from Aaron Habig. Thank you very much, Aaron. We appreciate that. But let's introduce our guests. Of course, we have 3 people today, and we got a good variety of people doing different things in the community. Let's start with Val. Because Val, say hello, Val.
Hi everyone. Because Val on Twitter, because Geek on YouTube, and if you don't know me, I make Game of Thrones videos based mostly on the show, and just try to analyze it. There you go. Happy to be here.
And you do a good job. We got to meet you at Con of Thrones, and that was a lot of fun. You introduced us to Jackbox games, and that was also a lot of fun. So, well done there. And let's say hi to Eliana from Maester Monthly and from Reddit. How you doing, Eliana?
Hi, I'm well. Hi, I'm Eliana, and yes, I moderate the Song of Ice and Fire subreddit as Glass Table Girl, and as Aziz said, do the Maester Monthly podcast where we try to highlight cool stuff that people are doing.
Definitely, yes, it's great. It goes to show that our community keeps growing. There's more people making content, and it never really, it never gets old. I never get bored of this stuff. There's always so much fun things to talk about. And last but certainly not least, we have Emmett Booth, aka Poor Quentyn, wearing lots of different hats in the fandom these days.
How you doing, guys? Thanks for having me. And I'm Emmett. I go by Poor Quentyn on Tumblr and Twitter, where I write about Song of Ice and Fire, and I covered Season 7 of Game of Thrones for Deadspin, which just wrapped up.
Yeah, that was cool having you on Deadspin. We definitely
that was
you
fun
a few times during the season. You had some good takes as always, and you helped us with our Euron episode. That was really good. People were thankful for that.
That was a lot of fun for sure. He's one of my favorites.
Cool. So let's a couple of very quick announcements, and then we'll get to it. We've got a fun format for today, which we'll kind of be toying with during the off season, and we'll get to that in a minute. We have our final drawing for the GRM box on Wednesday. Also on Wednesday, we'll have Radio Westeros returning. We've got a couple other guests to be announced. We're tightening all that up, and we'll be announcing that probably by tomorrow. So join us again on Wednesday, or if you weren't here for this live stream, you can join us on Wednesday instead. But even better if you can come to both. We also, the 3 of us, just went to Dragon Con. That was a lot of fun. And that was all weekend. It's here in our town, Atlanta, so it's a regular thing for us to do. And Ash, you filmed an extra little side piece there, something fun that we did here at the house in our studios.
Yeah, I was on Drunk, A Song of Ice and Fire history. I got drunk for the first time in probably over 4 years. It's been a long time. I don't usually drink. And I did that with Liz and Arbor, Chloe. And we covered Nymeria's migration, so I'm pretty excited for that to get out there.
Right on. And a couple of, I want to give a shout out to Chuck Laz of the Drummond Nightblood, one of our Ironborn captains who gave this shirt. This is House de los. It doesn't look like anything to me. So that's a little Westworld joke for you guys there. And also thanks to Armando, who had a cool parking lot party that we got to hang out in. And that was good times. A lot of Game of Thrones people there. And I want to give thanks to our patrons, of course. We have our dragon riders. Lord Mark of House Joseph, the Snow in Winterfell, is the rider of Mazla Cartho, the white dragon with green scales, horns, wings, and talons. We have Telenis the Talon, King of Gagassos, rider of Telarius, the red dragon with scales, horns, and talons of midnight black. And Jinx of House Lier, Green Queen of the Rainwood, rumored daughter of a woods witch, rider of Erogenia, the sylphic albino dragon with amethyst eyes and opalescent wings. And she's here for Dragon Con too. We got to meet her. That was a lot of fun. Well, that's one of the great things about cons is meeting people that you interact with in the fandom online, like on a semi-regular basis, but don't actually meet in person until some sort of event happens around the country like this.
We've met all 3 of our guests in person.
That's true. That's right. We have met all 3 of y'all. That's awesome.
I don't think I've met.
No, Sean hasn't.
You haven't met Ellie. That's true. Most of us have met. Not
Yet.
quite everyone.
Haven't
Yes.
met yet.
Sean, we'll get that fixed one of these days. Sean and Eliana will meet. Also, thanks to Jeff Gnarly, the Long Snapper, History of Westeros' First Sword. And people have asked us about Super Chat, and one of our, which is available today, of course, and one of our patrons figured out how to use it when you're using an Apple device, because iPhones don't have Super Chat. So what she suggests is to don't use the YouTube app. Just go to youtube.com using your Safari browser, and then Super Chat is a feature that you can use. So there you go. If you needed to figure out a workaround for that, well, there you go. So there's just a lot happening. I'm going to set a few things up, and then we're going to get into the material that we prepared for today. Mostly we're going to be dealing with things that are coming. We're going to talk about what we expect for Season 8, but we're also just going to talk out some of these other things that happened during the season. Just as a bit of a setup, it's funny to think about how we started covering the season. We realized there was a bit of a conundrum with all these characters were headed to Winterfell, all kind of at the same time, but not exactly at the same time. And so much depended on who got there first. Like, if Arya gets there before Bran, well, that could mean this or that. Or if the Brotherhood Without Banners shows up at Winterfell, well, that can affect this. If Brienne is there, or if Jon is there, or blah, blah, blah. There's all these different permutations, and it was a lot of fun to talk about, but it was really hard to figure out because of what was happening and what order everything was happening in. The same thing is happening now with regards to Winterfell. We have, for example, Jon and Dany's romance. That could go a lot of different ways, even outside of how that's going to impact Winterfell. But then we have whatever Tyrion talked about with Cersei, and how that's going to come out because Jaime has ridden north, and he knows all about Cersei's betrayal. So one would think that the people in Winterfell are going to hear all about that. But there's all these characters: Bran, Brienne, Tyrion, Davos. I'm not even naming all of them, but each and every one of them will have a reaction to Jaime, and each and every one of them will have a reaction to the Night King.
Assuming Jaime even makes it.
That's true. There's always a chance he doesn't even make it. He'll just be killed by some bandit on the road, and that'll be kind of...
He's got a cut in his leg that gets infected, and he just dies unceremoniously.
That would be pretty surprising. So one thing I did was to prepare for this. We asked each of our guests something that they're excited to talk about. One thing I think really matters in this fandom, and just in general in life, is to focus on things that you care about, things that you're passionate about. Now, we all love Game of Thrones, but we all have our favorite characters, our favorite plot lines, and things we maybe prioritize over other things. So with that in mind, I wanted each of our guests to pick something out that they're particularly interested in talking about. So what we have here is, let's have each person describe the general topic that they wanted to talk about. We'll start with you, Emmett. You picked something that I guess wasn't too much of a surprise.
Sure, I picked Euron to talk about. He's one of my favorites in the books, as you saw when we did that episode together on him. He's certainly not even close to the same in the show, but I'm interested with the kind of secondary marginal role they're using him for, what they might have in mind for him in Season 8, and just how they're going to fit him into the plot going forward.
Right on. Now, Eliana, how about you? You picked a cool topic that I like. I think one that a lot of people are interested in.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of focus in the discussion so far on, how is Daenerys going to react to Jon's parentage? And of course, how is Jon going to react to finding out? So I wanted to explore how other characters, specifically the folks over in Winterfell, are going to feel about their king in the north suddenly not being a Stark.
Yeah, right? That's kind of surprising. Wait, you're not... Wait, what? How's that possible? And Val, you picked a topic that I'm really excited about, one that's got a lot of possible permutations and things that we've just never really seen before.
Yeah, exactly. So I've picked talking about how the entire battle basically is going to go against the Whites and White Walkers, and what the Night King is going to do, and what everyone in Westeros is going to do against the Night King. So yeah, a lot of things could happen. It's a huge topic, and I have a few ideas, and but my goal was mainly discussing it with other people so I can get more ideas, because that's the best way to discuss any topic in Game of Thrones, I find. So yeah.
I agree. That's part of the idea here with us having, a bunch of people is that we all, especially with fairly limited time to think about it. I mean, the books we've been analyzing for years, we've had a lot of time to think about it. Dance with Dragons, even the bonus chapters, we've had plenty of time to think about those things. These ideas are fairly new because the source material, the show itself, is, only 2 weeks ago we saw a lot of these things happen. So the fandom hasn't had years to tinker with these ideas like we've had with so many other things. So having a lot of different opinions coming in at once is really valuable for us to figure out what's going on. Looks like we have a super chat from, what is that?
The pool's abstract
Oh, okay.
with no message attached, but thank you. Maybe she'll submit that later.
Right on. Yes, appreciate that. Okay, so
And another one from Matich. That's a hard Scandinavian type name to say. I don't even want to try.
cool.
Also, no message from either of them, but thank you.
Yes, thank you guys. If you intended to submit a question with any super chat, just submit that separately, and we'll keep an eye out for it. So the topic that we here at History of Westeros picked is Jaime. Jaime going north is, there's a lot of reactions to that. I brought that up already. And we're going to try to get through all 4 of these topics. We're going to do our Jaime one last, just in case we don't have enough time for it, because we can always bump that and talk about it in a future episode. I want to make sure our guests get their topics in. That's the priority. And also, if we have time, we're going to discuss how each of us handled the leaks and how we're going to handle presumably future leaks. It seems like they're not unlikely to happen given the patterns we've been exposed to so far. And since each of us is kind of in different parts of the fandom, Emmett is writing for Deadspin, and Eliana, you're a Reddit mod, and all of us are involved in different sorts of podcasts and videos, and it's just different how we all were presented this material. So that's kind of I think that would be kind of fun to talk about for a few minutes, but we'll hold on to that, see if we can get to this other stuff. Looks like another super chat as well.
Yes, from Dornish Dan. Did Cersei let Jaime go knowing what he knows? No one walks away from her. If so, part of what nefarious plot? I don't know. I think she just genuinely cares about him.
She couldn't pull the trigger on ordering his death. That's just
I
a hard thing
think
to do, huh?
Yeah.
Even still, she may
have.
have considered that as a potential and not revealed the full plan to him, or had some misinformation in what she told him,
What about you guys? Anyone have a take on, you think that was just emotional, or do you think maybe Cersei wishes she could have stopped him, or?
Yeah, I think she was just kind of caught in between her desire to kill and her desire to not kill Jaime there. She could have well kept something from him, that's true. But yeah, I think in the moment that was just probably purely an emotional thing.
All right.
We've got a couple more super chats to get through from Danny Jeter. What's the White Walker route? Love your maps.
Well, that was Val's topic, so
That's
we
our
will
topic,
be getting
so
deep into
We'll
that.
get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Next one from Leandro Ferraz. Greetings from Brazil. Just wanted to show my appreciation to History of Westeros and this community for making my Season 7 experience so much fun. Looking forward to book stuff and more Season 8 speculation. Cheers. Yes,
Well, that's a good point. I didn't mean to, or I meant to bring up that, of course, our book coverage is resuming shortly. I don't have an exact date on our first release, but it will be the Blackfish episode, which I really intended to have out before the season, so sorry to people who've been waiting for so long for that. But we will get that out fairly soon, and we'll be doing show and book coverage and lots of fun stuff. So thanks for that. Thanks. Say hi to everyone else in Brazil for us. Take a few minutes, I'm sure. Okay, so that clears up the super chats for now. Let us get started. Why don't we start with Euron? I see this is first what we have in our document. So let's do that. Let's start with Euron. I think one of the biggest parts here was, the fact that Jaime wasn't in on this whole plan. And what's going to happen next as well.
I wonder if Euron was in on this whole plan.
Well, Emmett, this is your topic. Why don't you get us started, and we'll go from there.
Certainly, I think, a pattern in both books and show is that as Jaime and Cersei have gradually become more estranged, Cersei's putting her trust in more and more unsavory, shady figures who either don't have her best interests in mind, or even if they're not hostile to her, are just using her for their own ends. Qyburn is a classic example of that, and Euron is another one. So I think, it's given the way he's talked, especially in asides to Jaime, it seems like they might have more of a role for him than simply serving Cersei. It seems like he might stab her in the back or maybe just slink away from her at the last second. The way they're setting up his kind of very conditional loyalty to her, it seems like they pretty much stripped away any of the more kind of sorceress apocalyptic stuff devoted to him in the books, and they pretty much devoted that purely to the others. So if you take that away from book Euron, what you mostly have is a guy who really likes stabbing other people in the back. So I think that might be what we see of him in season 8. I mean, his role up to this point has been that, and propping Cersei up, and also providing a specific antagonist for the younger Greyjoys, and that was set up again in the season 7 finale when you had Theon kind of headbutting his way to taking charge of his people, specifically to go off and rescue his sister from Euron. So in terms of how his downfall comes about, that might be how via Theon returning home to kind of raise up his people, which might also be happening in the books to some extent if the whole latecomer thing proves true. Yeah. But yeah, at this point, it's likely he's just going to be causing a secondary disruption of some kind, would be my guess.
Do you think there's any chance that he betrays Cersei?
I think I would probably put a high bet on that, but not even like actively betray her so much as like see that it's going wrong and quietly walk away. We might have been setting that up in the finale, even though it was feigned his walk away because he's actually still working for it. Might have been foreshadowing a genuine abandoning of ship in season 8 when things really start to go wrong for her. But it's happened before in the show, of course, where they whisk people away and you wonder, are they gone for good? They're just leaving, like with Gendry or Melisandre. So they might be how they just remove him from the show entirely. It's just have him slink away and abandon Cersei to her fate. Or they might have Theon kill him.
Yeah, that's a good part of this topic is how is Euron gonna, end, and whether will it be Theon or will it be somebody else? So Eliana, let me get your take here. What do you think that Yara is on the Iron Islands, or do you think maybe she was taken to Essos with Euron so he could keep an eye on her? Any thoughts there?
Wow, I've never thought about this question before.
Right? Sorry to drop that on you like that.
I would imagine that based on the way the show has been composing everything, that she would be on the Iron Islands if Theon's on his way there, so that you can just immediately get that clash between the two. As opposed to, him going there, her not necessarily being there. So I would imagine that she's there, and then we get to have more of the demonstrations of what kind of person Euron is. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So before the season aired, Pilo Asbeck was saying that Euron would be shown as worse than Ramsay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that that's going to play out?
Yeah.
At all.
I was wondering about that. Well, I had an idea that ties into the original question of where is Euron going to take Yara to Essos, or where I think he's going to keep her in his ship in the, just like down there, kind of like he did in the Winds of Winter released chapter. And that's where I expect to see Euron being really, really evil. It's just like a torturing scene for Yara, basically.
Oof. That would be right up Ramsay's alley, and if he's just worse than Ramsay was, that would be that'd be pretty straightforward. But he probably doesn't. Do we think he's even seen the script for season 8 yet? How does he know? I mean, maybe he was just playing himself up a bit. I don't know. I see where you're coming from, but I wonder what he actually knows about the future of his character.
He seems like a kind of a dramatic dude in general, which I say with love. He might have just been building up his character some, but he might have just, maybe they told him a bit of where he's going in season 8. They might have not shown him the scripts, but they might have mentioned a scene he has or what happens to Yara. Because I agree. I think it's entirely possible we get some kind of horrifying torture scene in the silence, which, that would be difficult to watch for sure.
Yeah, we don't need that again.
Also, there's a lot of different ways maybe to measure evil. Like Ramsay, we saw him do pretty evil things, but only to a few individuals. Maybe Euron does something evil to a large population.
Okay. I like that.
Burns down a whole city or something.
I like that idea.
That is, I like that too. That is the other role I was toying with in terms of show Euron, that he acts as a spoiler in some way for the side of the living, that he's not a major force of evil in the way he seems to be in the books, but he acts in some ways to, mess up our defenses or throw a chink in Jon and Dany's plans, or he in some way interferes with the ongoing stand against the others. That could be the role they have in mind for him.
My theory in the long term is that he helps the cause. Whether no one likes him, but they need his help anyway. That's what I foresee the long-term direction of his character.
It is interesting that they made things so that he basically has the only fleet.
This is true.
Dany sort of has some, a lot of her ships are still around, but they're severely reduced, and she certainly doesn't have any kind of expertise there.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense because we did see him at the Kingsmoot kind of promising to everyone that he would rule Westeros, I think. And that just makes me think. And what he did at the Dragon Pit scene, before he left, just kind of telling Dany that, they could be both the only ones left alive if they just go to an island. Maybe that's what he has in mind, just kind of letting everyone die in Westeros and then take it after, or something like that.
That is some potential foreshadowing.
Yeah,
and
I'll just wait. Yeah, while everyone else.
We have seen his ships launching these fiery catapults. Those might be good weapons against the dead. I think and it's common for George to bring people together that are default enemies, but put in a situation where they have to work together, whether it's Sansa and Littlefinger or.
Well, do you think that there could be any connection between Euron and the Night King? Like maybe Euron would want to use that power somehow?
In the books, it seems like they're heading that way, but in the show, they haven't really. I mean, in Euron's introduction in the show, they kind of built up a mystique around him when he had the storm going and he was saying weird things. But ever since then, they've hinged him more towards comedic than outright frightening. So it's certainly possible. But yeah, I think it'd be more like I was thinking about it in terms of in the Lord of the Rings, in the books, they had the scouring of the Shire, in which everyone came home from the war and found that Saruman had wrecked their nice, perfect green paradise. So I was thinking maybe he ends up in that kind of role where he's not as big as something like the Night King, but he spoils the paradise somehow, or he kind of complicates the victory because he does something drastic, behind everyone's back while everyone's focused on the others.
Yeah.
I had been saying there's a lot of speculation about him using a horn and some mystical abilities or antiques that he's got, from the books, that so far in the show there's been nothing, no hint of that. But maybe something's got to happen for 6 hour-and-a-half long episodes next season. Maybe that's something. Maybe we start off seeing Euron on some trek to get some device that changes everything. It also seems like in the long run they're going to need more than just soldiers with swords to beat this army. They're going to need something magical. Maybe that's Euron's role.
That's certainly possible. I know that Shay is working on some production stuff right now. We got the volume. We're working on our volume with our different setup here. She's, as usual, wearing a lot of hats.
It just doesn't. I don't know what to tell you guys. I don't want Aziz to be distorted, so I want it to be quieter. So I don't know.
My laugh gets really loud, so we have to worry about that. But anyway, we
should have had you on the side or something instead of the middle.
That might have worked better, yeah. So anyway, this is a new setup for us. We'll keep working on it. But Ashaya, if you have a minute, you're doing a lot of things at once. You had some idea about hopefully maybe while Euron's in Essos, maybe there's some potential for something more than just him getting the Golden Company. Maybe we get some of the mystical elements.
Where are you going with that? Yeah, I just thought that he could get the Valyrian steel armor that we've seen. I thought that he could get Dragonbinder or any other artifact while there.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. It's not, I would guess that's not very likely. In general, when we theory craft about the show, it tends to pay off to keep things simpler and to not assume things that will make the plot bigger are going to come into play, because it's also, they're rushing towards this finish line here. But, the epic parts of the story are really coming to the front. And if you've got a magical dude that can throw an ice lance, 100 miles an hour, then maybe Euron can go find some fancy armor. We'll have to see. So let's talk a little bit about the Golden Company as well in this expectation. I am personally very excited that it seems like we're almost certainly getting them at this point. They've been made larger, and the idea of them having elephants is great. And of course, his fleet is large enough, presumably, to bring these elephants over. And this large army. I've seen some people theorize that maybe he'll try to keep the Golden Company for himself, but I don't know if that's possible, because there's no reason to assume that the Iron Bank just handed the money over to Euron, right? They could be paying the Golden Company directly. They could give the money to Cersei. But is there any thought, has anyone thought about that as a possibility for maybe the Golden Company, Euron trying to pilfer the company for himself or use them to his own ends or something like that?
No, I don't think it's going to be possible for him to just take the Golden Company because I think the Iron Bank is paying them. So
yeah, that tends to be where I fall on it. Any other takes on that?
I haven't thought about it, but I kind of like there would be some sort of poetry behind it in that, the Lannisters' own gold being used against them and them falling to a golden company when that's something that they're so well known for. But I don't know.
That's pretty fun.
I do like that. Yeah, there are definitely resonances there, but I think overall, so many decisions in season 7 and season 6, I think, are made about propping Cersei up because they love her as a character and they love that actress, and I think they're just trying to keep her around for as much as possible. So I think the Golden Company is kind of one more step in that regard, especially since it seems like they may have given her Aegon's role from the books in terms of like being the person on the throne when Dany comes to Westeros and the person she fights. So giving her the Golden Company might just be kind of part of that process of kind of stripping down those storylines in the books and using them as kind of supports for Cersei. Same with Euron, cutting away the sorcerer stuff, but using him to keep Cersei around. Seems to be their goal with these kind of characters.
Okay, that's actually a great segue, too, because I wanted to talk about the potential for Cersei. Now that Jaime is, at least for now, gone from King's Landing, does this maybe change Cersei's plans with regards to Euron? Do you think that maybe there is going to be a marriage now, and maybe that the timeline on that has moved up? Any thoughts on that from anybody?
I have one thought.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you're trying to put leverage on someone, you're trying to make a deal or get someone to do something maybe they don't want to do, there's two sides to it. If you don't help us, we will chop off your finger. Blah, blah. If you do help us, we'll give you your own castle.
Stick or the carrot, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's no stick on Euron. It's just this promise to marry Cersei. There's no threat to him if he doesn't comply or succeed or whatever. So, combined with his, I'm going to say, independent nature, I think it's very tenuous whether or not he sticks around, and especially if, and my concern when Cersei's telling Jaime she's pregnant, Jaime's like, who are you going to say it is? She's like, yours. I'm like, what is Euron going to think about this? He doesn't seem like the type to just be cool with that. So,
he was willing to share Cersei with Jaime.
I guess, yeah. Maybe I underestimated his...
Maybe he just knows that he can kill this other child off, or if it's a bastard, it doesn't, inherit over him.
Or is she keeping it secret from him? Does he even know? He might not. Seems like no one else knows yet, but when he does find out, especially if there's no stick, and now there's also no carrot, what's keeping him around? And even if he doesn't keep the Golden, find some way to keep the Golden Company, I don't know quite how that would play out, but he might leave them stranded if they come over on his boats. And he's like, I'm not taking you guys back.
Yeah, and they were like, hey, we want to leave. This isn't what we signed up for. Like, nah, sorry, man. You guys are stuck. There's no ships for you.
At that point, what would they do? Where might he stick them? I'm not sure, but I don't know if that's even the direction we're going. But I do feel like they have to deal with the fact that he's been promised to marry Cersei, and that's why he's sticking around, and pretty much no other reason. And if she's pregnant with Jaime's, now Jaime left. Maybe she aborts the baby. I don't know. There's suspicions of whether she's going to have it in the first place for all kinds of prophecy reasons. But
yeah. All right, Val. What was your take on Euron here and Cersei?
Well, I had some ideas, but now I'm doubting myself. No, you've got a good point there, Sean. I think, the one thing that I thought, and I was discussing this with one of my patrons too, is that what is keeping Euron there? That's a good question, right? So what if Cersei did tell Euron that she's pregnant and told him it's his? It doesn't even have to be his. It could still be Jaime's. But she could be using it to manipulate Euron as well. And I was thinking, yeah, it makes sense for Euron to stick with Cersei because, she's having his baby. But at the same time, now remember that in the books, Euron doesn't really give a crap about his children. So,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe they changed that in the show, but yeah, it's possible that the baby would be the thing that's keeping him there.
Yeah, I really wonder too about, if we try, because we know we always try to see if anything from the books is going to pair up, if it's going to parallel, because it's always possible. They use the source material as often as they can. Often they make their own stuff up. But I was certainly wondering when Daenerys showed up in the Dragon Pit what Euron was thinking there, because he's talking about marrying the most beautiful woman in the world, and maybe his idea changed when he saw Daenerys instead of Cersei, and maybe he's like, well...
Yeah, I kind of expected that too.
Saying that Dany's more beautiful than Cersei? Get out of here.
Well, and Cersei did say an interesting line.
So you know.
Cersei said that when she was talking to Jaime, when he was about to leave her, she said to him that Euron, do you think Euron would give up marrying the queen or something like that? But she didn't say marrying me. She said marrying the queen. So maybe that was a play on words. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that and him talking about, the most beautiful woman in the world, all of that is not specific enough to be referring to Cersei.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Everything's pretty vague.
Emma, do you have thoughts on this, since it's a kind of a book-related topic? Have you thought about the possibility of that being what Euron tries to maneuver towards, like leaving to go towards Dany instead of maybe that's what he offers his ships? That's a great thing. Like you said, he's got this ability to change sides better than most people because he's like, well, I'll give you my ships will be on your side. You need that. Not only can I side with you and you don't have to fight my ships, but now they're on your side. So I don't know, it seems like an interesting possibility.
Totally. I could see him switching to Dany. I mean, Dany's kind of past the point where ships are super useful for her. I mean, they can move her forces quickly to the north, I suppose. But I mean, those, the Greyjoys more came in handy when she was trying to get from Slaver's Bay to Westeros. But, could certainly just getting rid of Cersei or, stripping her of defenders as we move towards her downfall. Yeah, I mean, Euron definitely has no real loyalty to her. So if it looks like she's going down, or if she denies him marriage or something he wants within marriage, then yeah, I could absolutely see him betraying her for Dany for sure. I wouldn't be surprised.
Right on. Okay, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. That seems like a solid possibility. And in terms of what Cersei's downfall might involve, if Euron switched sides, that would be devastating. I mean, she's got some things still working pretty well for her. She's got some momentum given that her enemies are tied up with, the correctly perceiving the greater threat. But she's got some things going her way. If the Golden Company's coming and everyone's distracted, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. So let's get some final thoughts on this before we move on to our next topic. And we've got some super chats to get to as well. But let's see if anyone else has any final thoughts on Euron for now. Let's talk about future expectations. Just in general, what ideas you have at this point for what is coming next for Euron.
This isn't for Euron, but I expect there to be something to come of Jorah having served in the Golden Company.
Ah, good point. Okay, that's a good catch. Also, this can tie into Theon and Yara as well, if you want to talk about Theon and Yara when you're giving your answer. Who wants to go next?
I'll go ahead. But yeah, I would say I probably see the outcome leaning towards Theon and Yara being central somehow. They haven't really been given much else to do at this point. Dany doesn't really need their help anymore. It's being tied into Theon's overall identity arc. He had that scene with Jon in the finale, so he's that inspired him to go off and fight Euron. So yeah, I would probably say that ends up that whatever Euron gets involved in along the way, I'd say that's probably the end game.
Cool. All right. Anyone else? Val?
I just came up with a tinfoil theory.
Well, hit us.
Well, it's not even okay. It's impossible. All right, like it's basically impossible. But wouldn't it be cool if Theon had a faceless man ability and he killed Euron, took his face, and then kind of tricked Cersei into thinking he was Euron, and he's also a little brother, so he could choke Cersei.
That would be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
She would only find out who it is when she reached down there. Like, wait, why is there's nothing?
Oh my god!
You're not Euron. You're not a faceless.
Can faceless men, replicate that too for their disguise?
Oh yeah. Oh.
We didn't see that part of the training in Bravos, but yeah, there's a whole month they spend just on that.
Yeah. I mean, Arya when she was Walder Frey, for example.
That's true. What if his wife? That's a good point. Yeah, gotta commit yourself to the bit.
How complete is the package?
The package. Well, what I guess my last take on this would be that my headcanon right now is that Jaime will tell them, go north and tell them what's going on. Like, yeah, Cersei's going to betray you guys, and Tyrion will be like, yeah, we know, but they don't know about Euron. going to get the Golden Company. That will be news to them.
Mhm.
They may not believe Jaime. But if Theon goes to the Iron Islands and finds out that Euron is gone to Essos, they will believe him. And so that's two different people. Maybe Theon corroborates Jaime's story.
Hmm.
And that's how they learn that this threat is coming.
You could see maybe at first they might literally imprison Jaime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then Theon comes and reveals Jaime's being honest, and so they let him out, etc., etc.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Okay, unless there's more Euron thoughts, let's move on to these super chats, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Alrighty.
Who is first?
The Pool's Abstract. Hi, I'm a new patron, Lady Madeline Valerian. Do you think Jon's identity will cause conflict between him and Dany, and will they eventually get married on the show? Well, that is one of our subjects that we're going to get to, I suppose, but we might as well maybe...
This is a really easy
talk
question,
about that
no?
now.
And yes, it's that simple. Everyone knows that, right?
I guess technically our topic that we're getting to later is how the North will react to it, not necessarily Dany. So this is sort of a subtopic, so we'll certainly handle this. Yeah, it's because let's just to set the record here. It's not just his identity in terms of that he's a Targaryen and that he's her nephew, but that his claim comes before. Both of those things matter, and it's a personal thing as well as a legal thing. You know, we don't know how they're going to feel about it personally, like on that level, like how Jon will feel about being in an incest relationship and how Dany would feel about that, and of course the whole thing of claim. So let's see, as Eliana, we haven't heard from you in a while. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely going to play a role in their relationship. I mean, obviously, Daenerys is going to be like, yo, what's up? That's my claim. But it's going to create that internal character conflict because she's going to have to question her entire role. Like, what have I been doing this entire time? The entire thing that I've thought was the purpose of my life since I was like 13 after my brother died is just completely different. And she's going to have to reassess her role in all of that, and maybe she'll be like, I need some space in the relationship, or she could completely turn on Jon, or Jon just won't know what to do. He'll be gormless, as he is.
One potential wrinkle to throw out here with this is that Dany's attitude has started to change already. We haven't fully seen her thoughts on the Iron Throne. I mean, it took all this to get her to focus on the Night King and the Army of the Dead. And she sort of changed her mind about what matters. Kind of like how Stannis did. You know, he switched from thinking at first he was all about getting the throne, just like Dany was, and then he started to change his priorities to focus on the Army of the Dead. And that's also what Dany has done. So if it's Dany of beginning of the season, it was a different person than Dany now, right? Like as her attitude towards ruling in general. So that is a whole other thing that makes this hard to predict. Sean, you have some thoughts, it looks like.
One thing is that I mostly agree with what you're saying, but I still think at the core Dany is who she is. Like at this moment, she shifted her gear. But remember, Stannis shifted his gear because his advisors told him to. He didn't have to see it. He didn't have to make some trek up there and see, you know what I mean? Like Davos said, hey, there's these warnings from the wall. And Melisandre's like, yes, we should go to the wall. And he's like, all right, let's go to the wall. You know,
believe Melisandre, yeah, that's true. And
Dany does not accept things when her advisors, when Tyrion's like, we should think about the long term. She's like, no, get me on the throne now. Get me on the throne now. Like, oh, there's this other threat. Let me see it. Let me see it now. Okay, there's this other threat. Let's do something about this threat now. Let's do something about this threat now. She's a little bit more what's in her face. Certainly, the long-term goal of her life is to get on the throne, but that's just because her brother said, we're supposed to be on the throne. We're supposed to be on... You know, she doesn't have some core mission of justice or something like that. She's just doing some combination of what she was raised to and what's in front of her face right now. Along the way, I try to give her credit. She wants to take over the city, takes over the city, and decides, you know, we should free the slaves here. You know, she takes on some responsibility, but she tends to resist the advice she's given and is... I don't know.
You made a point a while back that Jon took responsibility and ended up gaining power, whereas Dany took power and ended up gaining responsibility, and they both kind of are sort of in a similar place now. And but of course, it's even more complicated because their own personal feelings about each other are going to just throw another wrench into this whole situation.
Even minus romantic elements here. I think when she finds out, or if assuming she finds out and believes that Jon should be the correct heir, I think even if she has it in her, like I feel like the right thing to do. Like that's been her justification for a lot of very questionable actions. Is she's supposed to be on the throne? Very similar to Stannis, right?
Yeah.
So if she realizes, oh wait, I'm not supposed to be on the throne, does she relinquish that? You know, if that's her justification, it seems like the honorable thing to do would be, okay, it should be Jon. But even if she has that streak in her, she still might have to reconcile burning the Tarleys to death. You know what I mean? Like if the reason she burned them is because they wouldn't bow to her. Well, if they weren't supposed to bow to her and I killed them, you know, I don't know how much the show will give time to that moral struggle, that, you know, remorse that she should struggle with. But I think it would be a super interesting thing that you could get in a POV in the book.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true. Okay, so let's go ahead. Was that Emmett there?
Sure, yeah, I think I agree with Sean. There's definitely potential for a huge kind of sunk cost fallacy on Dany's part, that she's expended this much energy and spilled this much blood in her campaign for the throne, that giving it up at this point would be tantamount to saying that none of that was worth it. But on the other hand, like her relationship with Jon only occurred, like that the barrier was only breached because she agreed to devote herself to fighting the Night King, the Army of the Dead. That's what led Jon to bend the knee. So if she turns her back on that, if she considers, you know, if she's angry about Jon's claim, then that brings her back into that realm. So I could see it leading to tension in their relationship in that regard. If she, you know, is that focused on the Iron Throne, but you know that leaves up in the question of whether he will be. So, but yeah, I imagine that's what I imagine the tension will be, is her potential anger about his claim undercutting hers versus trying to stay focused on fighting the Army of the Dead, in which case it shouldn't really matter that he's also a Targaryen.
Let's just go around the circle real quick. We spent a lot of time on this question. Let's just get everyone's quick yes or no answer on the second half of this question. Was, will they get married eventually? Sean, you first.
No.
No. Okay. Shea?
Yeah.
Yes. I also say yes. Eliana, do Dany and Jon get married?
No.
No. Okay. Val?
I would say no, but because it won't be possible, not because they won't want to.
Okay, cool. All right. And Emmett?
I could definitely see it happening, but if it happens, it'll happen just right before the end. I don't think they have enough time to really linger on it much, especially if they're going to give them some tension to work through beforehand.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be a marriage that works out. I think they'll get married, Dany will be pregnant, and things will go south.
So that's basically a 50-50 split there
While they go north.
On our guesses. So I guess we, as a group, don't really know.
My guess is a lot of the yeses think it'll happen, but it'll be like not this beautiful romantic thing. It'll be this technical, political thing. Or the people who don't think it'll happen think that they'll want to get married, but they'll be torn apart and it can't happen. You know.
I agree. I don't think any of us who said yes are predicting that it'll be a happy, like, peaceful marriage.
Didn't they get married in Pirates of the Caribbean, like on a boat in the middle of a battle? That's kind of what I would see happening with Jon and Dany. Like as the whites are surrounding them. If only Thoros was still around, they could have him marry them.
Danny's gonna pull like a Dwight Schrute when Dwight married himself to Angela. Someone's speaking. Danny's gonna have some Dothraki. Sunday, and Dothraki will have them wed in a language that Jon just doesn't understand.
I could see that works for Jon's kind of dopey expression. I could see that working out. Yeah. What's he brooding over this time? He got tricked into marriage. All right, next question. What do we have, Shea?
Right here from
Matthias Bosfeld.
Thank
Apologize for the name there. We
from
don't
Holland.
From Holland, awesome.
Love your streams. What are major book plots for season 8 TV show according to us? Well, I think we already touched on the idea of the Golden Company as a different but major book plot that's coming to the fore.
The elephants, that part's the same.
Very major.
Yeah.
I think that would be the one that I think of first off the top of my head that I'm most excited for.
I think this showdown, like the humanity, although I think it'll be a very different set of humans being trapped, sort of maybe surrounded or besieged at Winterfell. That looks like it's going to happen here in the show. I think something similar to that will happen in the books.
And there's some I think aren't happening. Obviously, we're not getting young Griff. Obviously, we're not getting any grayscale outbreaks. I think a lot of us have predicted in the books for a while.
Yeah.
So there's some major things that just aren't happening very clearly.
And also I think this Jon Dany stuff is basically similar. Probably, but maybe not some of the details.
I don't expect to see anything with Alice Karstark. You know, we saw the character, but I don't expect to see that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, what about you guys? What's your expectation? What are some of the things that strike you as book plots that we'll be seeing played out in season 8? Let's start with you, Emmett.
Yeah, I agree. The war around Winterfell is one I'm looking forward to particularly, given that's just been built up for so long in the books and the show. I'm interested to see what they do with Bran, especially given the limitations in budget and kind of tone, I guess, because I think especially in live action, there's only so far you can go with Bran before it starts to become wacky, and I don't know if they necessarily want to do that. But yeah, that's probably what I'm looking forward to seeing most, is how they incorporate Bran going forward, because it's easy to kind of, you know, you don't have to do much with him when you're just keeping him off stage and just training him, just using him for exposition. But when push comes to shove, and he's actually at the core of the magical fight, I'm interested to see what they do with him. Yeah,
Bran's role so far, as a lot of it has just been to reveal past mysteries. So what past mysteries are left? So yeah, I'm really curious about that too. Well, we'll definitely have a Bran focused chat one of these days. But for now, we'll move on. Eliana, what do you think about what are you looking forward to for season 8 as far as book crossover stuff? At least what's occurred to you so far.
I'm also really looking forward to seeing the elephants and, you know, Harry Strickland's favorite elephant, Little Pussy. But, you know,
how random is that? That's so...
he really likes that elephant. And you know, what's going on with the two big R'hllorians that we have left now? Like, what's going on with Beric? How does that set the tone for what we can expect of Lady Stoneheart? And then also, what's up with Melisandre? What sort of role is she playing that she goes to Essos, but like has left us with that little nugget of, I'm coming back. Like,
to die.
Yeah, to die. So...
And so are you, Varys. Like,
It's the worst death pact ever.
All right, Val, your turn. What are you looking forward to with book crossover stuff for season 8?
Well, you just reminded me of one big thing I was looking forward to seeing, that Beric giving his last life, because I keep bringing up that last life he has, giving it up to someone with a kiss of life, like in the books. So I was hoping he would give it to Dany. Maybe Dany has to sacrifice herself, and then Beric is there to, you know, bring her back for us, type of thing. And also, well, the fact that Dany started to get you know, her period again in the book, so maybe, you know, seeing that in the show for her to be able to have a baby again. So yeah.
Dany and Jon will match then. They'll both have come back to life.
Yeah, that's what you need for their genitals to line up properly to make a baby. Okay, I think we got that covered. Let's move on to the next one,
which is GBNF. I believe one of the main reasons why the Night King is marching south is that the Night's Watch killed Craster, who was under the Night King's protection. Love the show. That is interesting. I mean, certainly, I guess a lot of his men are related to Craster. Assuming that Craster's sons have grown up and aren't like little toddler, teenage White Walkers.
It's a blood feud type situation.
I have seen people theorize that what are they doing? What's the Night King's goal? What's their mission? They're going to get Sam's baby. Or Gilly's baby, I should say.
Craster is such an outlier that he's a fount of theories because of it's just, what is the deal with this guy? How did he arrange this process in the first place? Yeah, it's puzzling.
I'm suspicious though, because I feel like the White Walkers were on. I don't know if "on the move" is quite the right word, but we were seeing them. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like they were just this myth that if they ever existed, it was centuries ago, you know? But then we see them appearing left and right before Craster has been eliminated, you know? So
they were attacking the Night's Watch before Craster was... anything happened to Craster. Yeah, that is a problem with that.
So maybe it's connected. Maybe the Night King had a vision that the Night Watch was going to kill him. And so he started mobilizing forces in response to that, you know? Who knows?
Yeah, I wonder, or it's possible to flip this around. Maybe Craster is part of why the White Walkers started returning. Maybe him, you know, I've seen that theory too. I'm not necessarily endorsing either of these ideas, but they're pretty cool thoughts. All right, so who else has a take on Craster in general, or any other motivation for the Night King?
We could do a whole episode on motivations for the Night King.
That's
Yeah,
true.
it's a popular subject, I think. People like speculating on whether, the Night King is in the right in some way.
Mm-hmm. It's very true.
I think with Craster, he always struck me more as like humanity's model for surviving the others versus the others' model for surviving. Like Craster is like, this is the only way you survive under other occupation. Like you sell out your kids to the others. Like this is the only way you get past the long night. And like the others, I think they certainly rely on it, but they probably have other upon or some other method. I mean, but yeah, overall, I definitely agree with Sean. Like, we already had the Battle at the Fist of the First Men. We already had them killing Waymar Royce at the beginning. They were already on the move and active long before the Night's Watch messed with Craster. So, yeah, on the whole, I probably would say no.
All right. Either Val or Eliana, do you have a take here? All right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the only idea I had was, okay. But wait, what exactly are we talking about?
Night's King and Craster, like just in general, the possible idea that Craster's death is potentially part of what Night's King is after, or just the general concept of why maybe he's doing his thing.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, well, the whole idea of like what made him start getting on the move is the one that I have the most trouble with. I don't really know, but I just like the idea that he was turning Craster's babies into White Walkers and not any other human, basically because there's gotta be a reason why he picked Craster, but I figured it was because babies don't have the that sinful human mind type of thing. That they haven't been taught yet what war is, and they have no desire to cause any harm to anyone. So I figured that's why the Night King preferred babies. Mm-hmm. But I don't know why Craster's babies specifically. Yeah.
So many Craster theories. Craster's a Stark, Craster's a Targaryen, Craster is this or that. Yeah, I mean, and I can't, there's really nothing, for the most part, there's not a lot to prove or disprove any of these ideas.
I had someone inspired a thought on me. They pointed out how unusual it was that, like early on when Sam saw the White Walkers and he just passed by him. Remember that north of the wall? And one of them just looked right at him. Not just the zombies, but one of the White Walkers looked at him and just kept going, kept moving past. And at the time, until this season, I guess, I've been mostly just chalking that up to he's just too insignificant. He's not even worth them stopping to kill. You know what I mean? But I started thinking a lot about when the Night King had all the Magnificent Seven on that ledge and just waited through the night, or maybe even multiple nights. He had this spear that could take down a flying dragon in the air. He could have taken those guys off that cliff, but he didn't. And I was assuming it was part of a master plan to lure the dragon there. Once the dragon's there, he still shoots down the dragon in the air instead of the one on the ground with all those characters nearby. And it started to make me think that maybe he specifically wants Jon or Dany or maybe Beric to live. Maybe he specifically wasn't coming. In fact, when the dragon does take off, without Jon, he then tries to throw another spear at him. So it made me wonder if maybe he wants, for some reason, he wants Jon to live. Maybe he wants Sam to live. It made me start thinking about that. Maybe that time when he let Sam go, when they just pass out, for some reason Sam needs to survive to play some role in some future destiny.
The concept of certain people having special blood is certainly all over the series.
And if Sam is protecting that baby that was meant for the White Walkers, maybe Sam needs to live.
Well, I had an idea for Sam being spared, and it had to do with the same thing that I was just talking about, is that if the Night King only attacks people who are in his twisted way of thinking evil because they start war and cause harm, that the biggest thing that we know about Sam is that he can't hurt anything. It's impossible for him to hurt anyone. He would never go to war. He would never
kill a White Walker. Oh wait.
Well, okay, all right. But maybe killing a White Walker isn't what the Night King sees as starting wars. Type of, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe it has something to do with Sam being very peaceful.
Gilly's kid is going to grow up and be pissed that Sam killed his brother. That was my older brother that you stabbed with dragon glass. All right, let's move on to the next one. We have from
from Mikaria Stark.
That's a cool name.
I asked, how do you think the Dothraki will fare in the snow? How will they handle the cold? And this is a question Aziz and I have talked about before, this specifically and other things, just that we really want to see this culture shock from the Dothraki. It's one of my biggest disappointments of the season is that we haven't seen really any personality from the Dothraki at all. They're just sort of a nameless, faceless horde, which isn't great. And I think it's really good TV that they could show. Like, seeing the Dothraki react to snow, in the north, that's just good TV, right?
That would be awesome. I would really like to see that. And it makes sense. They're not just them, but their horses and stuff. These animals aren't used to this at all. And I think that just the regular Northerners are going to eventually start struggling. I mean, we've seen that's foreshadowed a bit with Sansa getting, wanting the leather on those breastplates and making sure they have enough food.
I think Jorah, when they were on that ledge, made some comments like, we can't last out here forever. We're going to freeze to death,
Yeah, so I think that is probably going to come up. Because I think the effects of winter is something that they've just sort of touched on, but they're kind of going to touch on it a lot more in Season 8. That's my prediction anyway. And the Dothraki should be a big part of that. It should be, maybe they should be affected more than anybody.
I was really looking forward to Jon mining the dragon glass there. They even made some comment. Someone told Jon, go ask the Dothraki what they think of Dany.
Too bad we didn't get that.
And I really thought that was going to happen. I thought they were going to be down there with axes chipping away dragon glass, having conversations about, Dothraki life, Dothraki asking Jon about things, Jon asking them about things, and I was really looking forward to that. I thought they set that up, and he didn't do it, and now I'm afraid it's not going to happen.
All right, who else has a take on the Dothraki in the snow?
I wonder if it plays into, they had that legend, right, that Dothraki did about the ghost grass?
Yeah.
So maybe they're going to see the snow and they're going to be like, I'm out. This is the ghost grass and we need to go back, or I don't know, or maybe they'll be like, this is our only chance to fight back death. So
that's a good take. I never thought about comparing it to their ghost grass legend. That's a really cool idea. They do have this sort of apocalyptic, sort of Ragnarokish sort of aspect to their beliefs. It's much more slowly playing out. Instead of just one big apocalypse, it's a very slow apocalypse. Just gradually ghost grass will kill everything. Okay, let's move on to the next question.
All right, from GB T-Jom? I don't know.
GBT Jom.
Oh, okay, that's TJ. D&D have alluded to 3 moments Martin told them about. The first 2 were Shireen and Hodor. The third will be at the very end. Any ideas on what the third might be? I would go with the deaths of Jon, Dany, both. One or both. I would go with their deaths.
Agreed.
Really surprising. Yep. Ooh, okay. Wow. Okay. Quick agreement from half of our group.
But I definitely think Dany at the very least.
Like Nissa type stuff? You guys are on the Nissa train, basically?
Yeah, I lean towards Dany dying, but I also think it's possible, / I want both of them to just die. So, I don't know.
So, yeah, complete same. I would say that's definitely the twist they're leaning towards there. And yeah, Dany's probably more likely than Jon, but yeah, I would lean towards both.
What about you, Sean? You got a prediction here?
Especially given that both of those other moments, Shireen killed by her own father, somewhat condoned by her own mother, Hodor, arguably
damaged
killed
by
by Bran, you could see 2 people who ostensibly care about each other having to kill one of each other. I've many times kind of theorized the idea that what the Night King wants is for dragons to not be in Westeros. And Jon is going to be this mediator since he's ice and fire between the Night King and Dany. No dragon. Jon's going to have to go tell Dany, you have to leave. I know we just got married. I know you're pregnant with my baby, but if we're going to save the world, you can't be in Westeros. You're not even the rightful heir anyway. Get out. I'm not leaving. I killed the Tarleys to be here.
I have long been a defender of the possibility of Tyrion Targaryen, not someone who says, oh, he's definitely Targaryen. I think it's still less likely than possible. This idea is something that has dropped off in my mind, given what we've seen this season. At least as far as if you're trying to figure out what happens in the books based on the show, which is often a fail. Like, often that doesn't work. But when Viserion died, that made me think a lot about maybe Tyrion isn't going to ride a dragon at all, let alone be a Targaryen. That certainly that was a major curveball to some of these expectations. So if you had asked me a year ago, I'd be like, that would be one of the possibilities for me. Like, Tyrion's actually a Targaryen. That would be an oh shit moment for Dan and Dave. They wouldn't have caught that. But I think Dany's death or Jon's permanent death is a lot more of an oh shit moment and a lot more likely at this point. I think Tyrion Targaryen is fading as a possibility. Certainly in the show, it's almost dead completely.
Yeah. I would have said that this Viserion thing could have been that moment, but this isn't the very end, for one. And I don't get the impression that this is what they were told.
And I don't think anyone had as an emotional... Well, very few people, I think, had as a big reaction to the dragon dying as they did to Shireen. Not that the dragon dying wasn't a big deal, but Shireen
it wasn't as emotional.
A bigger deal. Yeah.
Yeah, Shireen. I mean, you have Carrie Ingram's amazing acting, just hitting you.
I would say I think
level.
Hodor was the most emotional of those three for people. For me, I think Shireen was the most emotional, then the dragon, then Hodor. But I think Hodor was widely considered
to the fandom.
Yeah, to the fandom. Yeah.
We got more reaction on Hodor's death, our show got more reaction for Hodor's death than the others. That's for sure. Okay, so did everybody weigh in on that? I guess so, yes. All right, next one.
Any ideas? All right, cool. Move on to the next question here. We just got quite a...
Looks like we're doing a lot of QA today. That's perfectly okay, especially since the majority of these questions are on points.
Yeah. So from King Stork 1, predictions for the final scene of Season 8, Episode 6. For example, a new batch of dragon eggs hatching in the dragon pit as Jon Snow, Lyanna Mormont, and Sir Pounce look on. That's quite a group.
It will definitely involve Sir Pounce.
I think, for sure, it's a pretty popular idea for the final shot to be something to do with dragon eggs. The idea that time is cyclical and that, this is going to happen again. The dragons are going to hatch again after the dragons have, maybe died completely at the end of the season. So I think that's a strong possibility. I would like it if there was something more with some direwolf action maybe as well.
Ooh.
A new little bit of pups. The direwolves have had puppies. I don't know.
I like Sam sitting down to write it.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I don't know that it's more likely than any other ideas, but I just really like that idea.
I'll let other people go first so I don't steal their idea.
All right, who's going next? Eliana, let's hear from you.
I got distracted by wondering how the direwolf would get along with Sir Pounce, like cats and dogs. But, I don't know. On one hand, I've always actually imagined, not necessarily the last scene of the show, but the books ending more with the idea of the death of magic, as opposed to necessarily the cyclical nature. But the cyclical nature does fit into the whole bittersweet thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it will end with the death of magic, so to speak. That there will, there won't be dragons. There won't be big magic users all over the realm. A lot of them will die, I think.
Here's something I just thought of. If magic dies out, do people who are animated risen from the dead? They just drop. It's like Jon just be like, this kills me too. Interesting. All right, who haven't we heard from yet? Emmett and Val.
Yeah. I agree. I do like the image of Sam sitting down to write the story. That does appeal to me greatly, especially in a Lord of the Ringsy kind of way. But yeah, I could see the last shot being a hint of magic is mostly gone, but maybe there's a little bit of it left, on a dragon egg, or on a hint that the others will come back eventually, or maybe magic is gone for now. Ellipsis question mark. I could see something in that vein.
For now.
Exactly.
Val, what about you? Yeah, I don't have any really cool ideas. Just basically what you guys are saying. Just some hint that things will repeat themselves again.
Maybe one White Walker still out there.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think we're going to see some eyes open and they're going to be blue. And that'll be Game of Thrones.
Or one little hand just crawling down.
And you think Sansa will sit the throne at the end, right, Sean?
I don't...
I mean, that'll be the last scene, but...
I don't specifically think that.
You just hope it.
But I think it is in the realm of possibilities, maybe even a likelihood. But
that would be cool. I'm okay with Sansa finishing things up on the throne. That's better than a lot of the other possibilities. Okay, next super chat.
One. Yeah, from Nose Kills or Nose Skill. No, Nose Kills. Okay. Sorry about skipping ahead, but I wake up for work in 5 hours. Night King's dragon breathes fire, according to the showrunners. So I guess he has to be careful not to burn his army. Probably can't create whites with it. Bad deal.
That is something I mentioned. We have some notes for how the Night King. That's kind of an unusual situation for him. Yeah, he doesn't want to burn.
Him a little bit.
Yeah, he can attack structures and things.
And other armies.
My thought on that, by the way, is whatever, doesn't matter. If you just kill all the bad guys' armies and you can't raise them, so what? You killed all the bad guys' armies. You know? He already has a huge army. He can take down any castle with this dragon. Oftentimes, armies who can't raise their dead send troops on suicide missions just because they have to take that hill or have to get across that wall or whatever. So I think it'll be a calculated loss. Maybe he'll avoid it, but I think he's definitely going to be willing to do it.
Yeah, I agree. It seems it's not, he wants to raise as many dead as he can, but so be it if a few of them are incinerated. Any other thoughts on this?
Remember the Night King sending like a bunch of whites just over the cliff at Hardhome, just collapsing into a pile at the bottom. Like they're purely disposable troops as far as he's concerned, which I think is part of the point. Like there's the grained analogy to how that's how the lords treat commoners in war, is just, empty cannon fodder, and the Night King is just kind of like the ultimate exaggeration of that. So yeah, I think if he has to not have more whites or burn the whites he has, he will be totally fine with that.
Cool, yeah. All right. That's a good question. And here's another one.
From Erin Habig. This is for Acre Frey. She wants our 3 guests to say Irish wristwatch.
Now, this has been becoming a bit of a thing on our show. Acre Frey asking us to say Irish wristwatch. So, all right, the 3 of you have to say Irish wristwatch.
Aziz made it sound easy. You guys might want to
I've had practice.
At the same time?
No. Okay, you first, Eliana, because you asked.
Okay. All right. Well, Irish wristwatch.
See? It's hard. Okay, Val.
I actually saw that question earlier, and I was trying to say it in my head.
You're practicing.
Yeah, okay. Irish wristwatch.
Yeah.
Wait. I can do this. Irish wristwatch.
Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
All right. Evan.
And Evan.
Irish wristwatch.
You guys are cheating. You're saying it slow. 3 times fast.
Faster,
3 times fast.
faster.
Yeah.
Irish wristwatch.
Very good.
Irish
Okay.
wristwatch.
It's
All
so
right.
hard. Why is that so hard?
All right. Another super chat from the Snow in Winterfell. I'm not letting the show change. Any thoughts on the books? Too different now. Show is foreshadowing Jon on Drogon. Team Aemon forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there was foreshadowing for him on Drogon. I don't know if I think that it was foreshadowing for him on Drogon, though. I think it was just Jon has a dragon connection.
I hope it was that, not writing Drogon. I agree with Lord Mark that it's possible. I'm not sure that I agree that it was foreshadowing, but it's possible. Considering it in that light is interesting.
Especially
I definitely
if
did. That
you
wasn't my first
consider that Dany dies without Drogon dying first, then maybe Jon would ride Drogon
Yes.
next, but that still leaves Rhaegal in the lurch with no one riding him potentially.
Exactly.
Tyrion.
Tyrion on Rhaegal. That's how Tyrion stays in there.
No, obviously we're just gonna see like 10 people on Rhaegal.
Yeah, they're just all right.
I mean, we saw
Ride
7
on.
people on Drogon.
Exactly, so they're just gonna ride on him.
Jorah proved that he can ride a dragon. Barely.
Any other takes on this one? Any of you guys have thoughts on that?
I think it's possible. It's possible that they used Drogon because it was too expensive to change the color to green and show Rhaegal.
Yeah.
I don't know, but when Jon said to Tyrion that he's not a Stark, apparently the dragon that flew over him right at that moment was Rhaegal. So I still think there's a connection between Rhaegal and Jon. Yeah, I would like to see him ride Rhaegal instead.
It would make sense. Like that's the one named after his dad. It just seems to fit, but we'll have to see. I saw a quote from, or a chat from our friends over at BTIT there. We could say, hey, BTIT, hey, behind the Iron Throne. Hi, guys.
That's how hard it is to keep up with this chat. I didn't even see it, but yes, hello. Next super chat from Pino123.
Hey, Joe.
Good
hey,
friend.
buddy.
Season 8 will reveal that magical power is dependent on beard length. Sean wins.
ZZ Top wins.
Yeah. Grand Maester Pycelle would have won, I guess.
That's why some of those walkers have beards, because they understand.
All right. We've got one more super chat before we can move on to our next section. From Nikaria Stark. Do you think that people will be safe in Winterfell from the White Walkers? Do you think there is some magic there?
I don't think they're safe from Viserion.
Yeah, it's true. I don't think they are either. But it does seem like there's some magic involved in Winterfell.
Yeah, maybe kind of along the lines of Storm's End, and we did see that on the show with Melisandre needed Davos to bring her in there. Supposedly, you know, book canon says some of that same magic might be there at Winterfell as well. We don't have any sort of, as far as I know, I don't think there's any proof of that. It's just kind of a legend. But I'm curious to see. Anyone else have a thought on that?
I mean, it's in the name Winterfell as the reason for the castle's existence for sure. I can't remember, did they emphasize on the show at all, like the whole greenhouses and hot water being piped through the castle? Has that ever come up?
I don't remember it ever coming up. If it has, it might have. Only time I think it might have come up is in like the history and lore animated videos.
Right,
maybe.
Exactly. I think you're probably right. So in that case, I mean, it probably won't be emphasized that it's a special castle in terms of being besieged by the others. I think there are hints in the books that it was designed after the Battle for the Dawn to, like, deal with the next other's invasion or prepare for another one. But yeah, if they haven't emphasized that in the show, then it's probably just going to be presented as just another castle. And yeah, like you say, it's not going to be a defense against an ice dragon for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I lied when I said we were moving on. We got another super chat from the Stone Winterfell saying he agrees Jon should ride Rhaegal and Tyrion should ride Viserion, but the show doesn't really make sense. And Viserion, you know what I mean. I will mention, I think that I like that some people pointed out the idea that Viserion isn't necessarily lost for good. That
the dragon is a slave stuff?
The dragon is not a slave, that Bran could skin change into Viserion, or that maybe Jon could still forge some sort of connection due to being undead, or in the books, if something like this happens, due to his own skin changing. Certainly Tyrion doesn't seem to have any abilities like those, but I guess.
He definitely walked down into those dragon pits and took the chains off.
Yeah, just in terms of interacting with an undead dragon, Jon and Bran have an angle that we could go on. Tyrion, not so much.
Mm. Okay, well let's...
Maybe he gets killed, comes back.
You need to be dead to ride an undead dragon. Okay, let's take care of our mid-roll shout-outs real quick, and then we'll come back and talk about the Army of the Dead. And we'll go from there. So first off, thanks to our Blood Riders. That's Kohal Koi, Master of the Bow, called Sunpiercer, who fired a grayscale infected arrow at a certain gentleman who deserved it, and he is dying slowly and painfully.
A certain gentleman, huh?
Yeah, certain very bad gentleman. Vorsaki is wielder of a Valyrian steel arak with the dragon bone hilt. I almost said dragon glass for the second week in a row. Mm-hmm. And that is a badass weapon, and she is a badass fighter. We also have Stefania, first name Kalaki Blood Rider, wielder of Orvik Ki Vorsa, which is the whip of fire, and that is pretty sweet. We also have, excuse me, we also have our Queen of Love and Beauty, that's Casey of House Chickawawa, from Tormund's Giant's Wang, who says, "Our love is forever." And also, a shout out to our Patreon sellsword captains who are led off by Peter Blaze of the Emerald Isle, captain of the Werewood Wanderers, to long lives, quick deaths, cold beer, and warm women. Daegron is Marshal of the Axe, captain of the Red Tide, resistance is futile. Garyon Pike is wielder of Grave Embrace of Valyrian Steel Axe, captain of the Iron Wave, Iron's Kiss is eternal. Chiron Calsbane is captain of the Stone Shields, the torrent breaks upon the stone. Captain Kithik Deadeye is of the Scarlet Longbows, pierced by darkness. Caribou Shard is captain of the Walking Drum. Their motto is Yolbosan, which translates to "May there be a road." Haima Helminth is captain of the Whispering Children. Dead men tell no secrets. Lady Lajara Dajo is the Iron Lily, master archer, Castellan of the Summer Island Keep, Arboreal Point, and captain of the all-female Wailing Widows. Their motto is "Women and Children First." Cody the Crimson is the Bastard of Bracken, captain of the Red Waste Exiles and recruiter of the Free Folk. And finally, Cameron, the Hammer of Hornwood, captain of the English Lions, with the motto, "Honor is the reward of virtue." Very cool. Okay, so thanks to everyone who supports us on Patreon, and we have a variety of titles and rewards that you can get to by going to historyofwesteros.com and clicking on the Patreon link. And there's a lot of other ways to support the show there as well. Check out our supporters page for a lot of other cool, fun nicknames like that. Some of them don't get regular shout-outs, but they're really fun names. Okay, so
Army of the Dead, right?
Yeah, let's talk about the Army of the Dead. And at this rate, I don't think we're going to get to our Jaime topic. So apologize anyone who is particularly looking forward to that. We're going to most likely have to save that for another time. We've only gotten through, 2 of our 3 guest topics, and we also have our leaks topic. So I guess there's a chance we still get to Jaime. Probably not, though, with all these other questions rolling in. So I see people commenting on Shay has great socks here, too. Yeah, rocking the socks. The C-3PO socks are great. I'm sorry?
Did we get 2 out of 3?
We did Euron, and we did... Wait, is that all we've done? Wait.
We did John in the North.
Oh, yeah, we didn't.
Oh, we didn't. We just happened to talk about it.
We just talked about it a lot because the question. Okay, then we're almost certainly not getting to that. So that's only one of them. All right, so let's talk about the Army of the Dead. Vals, this was your topic that you're particularly interested in, so let's let you get this rolling. Obviously, we know that they've just breached the wall, and most people don't even know that yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to say with a show's timeline what's gonna happen first and what's gonna happen after. Like it's entirely possible for Dany and Jon to get all of their people to Winterfell before the Night King gets there, even though we saw the Night King just, going through the wall in the last episode. But that's a huge argument, is what's gonna happen at Winterfell, because we know that it's possible that Dany's vision meant that the Night King goes all the way down to King's Landing at some point. So, and I do think that one thing that I see happening is like the Night King will either, if the Night King has to go south, I don't think the Night King will end up killing everyone in Winterfell before he goes south. I feel like he will maybe cause some damage there, and then he will move south. Maybe that's where he's interested in going the most, and they will kind of just, obviously they will find some resistance there at Winterfell and going south, but they will continue to move south. I find maybe the Night King will go skip Winterfell, and I had a really good idea, and now I lost it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so what do you guys think about what's happening in Winterfell while I think about that?
One thing I wanted to talk about was the idea that the showrunners and people behind the show talked about how, we need to remember that things don't happen concurrently necessarily. Like, we might see Sam doing something and Jon doing something, but Sam's, plot line might be happening a couple months earlier or later. And with the Night King breaking the wall, I can't be sure whether that happened while Jon and Dany are on their way to Winterfell, or technically if that's happening after they've arrived.
Yeah, we do know, we know at least one thing. We know that when it happens in context with regards to Sam, because Sam sees that happen with the Ravens. Like Bran is watching the Ravens, is in the Ravens when they come through the wall. So we know it's concurrent with Sam and Bran's scene. We saw that last scene through the eyes of Bran's Ravens, didn't we?
I don't think so.
I thought we did. I know we saw them coming that way, but he was checking on them again.
Even if we did, it's still possible that Bran's seeing something to the Ravens in the future, or 2 weeks ago, or something.
It's possible, yeah. But in any case, that's still, regardless, that's still a great point. The timeline isn't exactly clear. What do people think of as far as how news will spread there? I mean, it could be just as simple as Bran sees it. That might be all it takes. Bran's like, hey, look what I just saw. Did this happen yet? Or is this in real time? If he was looking through the Ravens, then that's real time. That's not a vision of the future. That's real time. So I think we can be pretty sure it was real time. Maybe not 100% sure, but...
Yeah, no, and I find like every time Bran is talking about his abilities in the show, he never says that he can see the future. He's only ever said, I can see the past and I can see what's happening right now.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like if they give him the power of seeing the future, it would be like OP thing.
We got 2 examples of him seeing the future.
We have it, and one of the examples, I feel like he should know that he saw the future, because one of them was the wildfire explosion, which was a big enough event that he would have heard about it and maybe put those pieces together.
Yeah.
But he hasn't.
Yeah.
And
it's possible that maybe he's not powerful enough yet to see the future clearly.
Yeah, he saw that vision, it came to him, but he didn't choose to see it. It's just something that kind of flashed it through his mind. And the other one she's referring to is Bran seeing the shadow of a dragon over King's Landing, which he wouldn't know that that's necessarily the future. So that one's ambiguous. But the wildfire one, I mean, he should know about the sept blowing up, and yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, it's interspersed with the Mad King yelling, burn them all, so maybe that's confusing to him. Yeah, maybe doesn't know what he saw.
Okay,
Go ahead, yeah.
No.
I was going to see if Eliana or Emmett had any takes on this. We haven't heard from them in a minute.
I didn't really consider the timing, but I like the idea that so Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire is supposed to be a story about consequences built from characters' actions and their own desires. That Daenerys and Jon had the option to get to Winterfell faster, but they chose to take the longer way. Now, if they miss getting there in time, and the White Walkers take Winterfell, then that becomes a consequence for them putting their own desires and putting one another in front of their own duty to the realm. So, I like that idea if it went there.
That's a good call. Yeah. Wow. If the Night King comes and takes Winterfell while they're busy banging, that would be pretty amazing.
I wonder where Sansa and Arya and Bran and them would escape to, or if we just would never see a reunion.
That's my thought. Is that they might evacuate Winterfell. If a vision from Bran / Tormund and Beric show up, like they're on the way, well, we'll stand here and fight them. No, they have a dragon. We have to go, and Winterfell just gets evacuated.
That's one of the things, by the way, one of the reasons I want to talk about Jaime. It's too bad we're not going to have time for that. But one thing I will bring up about Jaime is interesting, is one bit of value that he can add to the group. Is he's the only one who's been on the receiving end of a dragon in battle. Like Dany and Jon have been on the side of a dragon, but they haven't fought against one yet. Well, I mean, unless you want to count what happened at the wall. That wasn't really a battle, though. That was really everyone running away. So no one has faced a dragon at Winterfell except presumably Jaime, who's going there. So that is kind of interesting. Not that he necessarily has a lot to say about it, other than, we don't want to face a dragon.
He would say evacuate Winterfell.
Yeah, he would, which they might take that the wrong way. Like, why are we listening to Jaime Lannister's advice here? He wants us to leave Winterfell. It may just come out. It may just be so obvious. Like, we really need to get out of here. This army is 100,000 dead, maybe more. Has anyone thought about the possibility of some of the stuff that's foreshadowed in the books? Is that there's like these ancient burial graves, like the Barrows and all these other spots in the north that the Walkers might add to their army through.
All the Starks and the Crypts.
The Starks and the Crypts is another theory. That's pretty creepy to think about.
Is Bran the
builder? I thought about that. Yeah, that would be really cool.
What's everyone's expectation for where they'll hit first? Will it just be the Umber lands? Because that should be the first spot there in their way. We may not. This show might kind of skip past that, but it is kind of funny that the Umber and Karstark lands are basically the first two up in their path, and those are the two that were just given to children. So
that might have been intentional on their part, just to introduce those two, just so we have like a focal point for those two houses, so they have named characters just to kill off basically when the others hit, just so we can understand their geographic progression. Yes, but they'll probably just hear about it in Winterfell, we've lost all contact from Last Hearth and Carhold, and that's how they know that something's gone horribly wrong.
That would actually go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say name characters to kill off plus Jon. I mean, I know that Lyanna Mormont's done a pretty good job, but you put children in charge of the castles that you had to fortify.
Yeah, it would be awful, especially if Lyanna Mormont went. For all three of those young children to be added. That would definitely upset some people.
It's kind of an interesting trick. It might be clever. It might be some clever writing on their part. They created this scene where they got to have this debate about whether these two were guilty for the actions of their family. Yet, we don't really get to know them. Yet, because they're children, if they're killed, we'll feel bad for them even though we don't know who they are. It's still like, oh, those were kids, though. If it's two random adult characters, it's just not going to matter as much to us. We'll still be like, oh, those two poor Northerners were killed. But we know these two kids. That just kind of has more emotional resonance, So maybe that might have been part of their thinking. If so, that was a lot of... we got a lot out of it, those two kids without realizing it.
I wonder where Lyanna Mormont is as well. She might be safer than most.
Yeah, she went back to Bear Island. She's like Euron, sitting on her island until...
I don't imagine her just sitting out of the action, though. So.
Yeah. What about White Harbor? You guys have any takes on? Anyone have thoughts about White Harbor being like a hot target for Night King because it's got more people? You know.
I mean, we certainly had it mentioned by John in about them traveling through there, which makes me think that we maybe will see it. But I'm still pretty pessimistic about it. That they just haven't really set the stage at all for us to care about these characters in White Harbor or even know anything about this city.
Agreed. Yeah, they've done so much work with the Manderleys in the books and setting up White Harbor as a potential kind of, if not a place of refuge, just kind of a central place in the north for, holding the line against the others.
We got a great,
especially given that.
We just got a great pun from Joe Magician that confirms that this will happen. Just so you all know, Joe Magician says, "You mean White Harbor?"
There's already so many these locations have puns built in. I don't know if we have White Harbor, but we have Night King's Landing. There's got to be more than that, right? Not just those two, right?
We'll point them out as we get there.
And someone else made the joke in our last stream, and now Eastwatch is ended. Yes. The puns don't stop on the History of Westeros stream. No, they don't. Another interesting question is, how will Viserion be used? Night King has this new powerful weapon as part of his army. What will he do with it? Will he, fly farther south, scout ahead? Will he, torch castles? Who has an idea here? It seems like there's a lot of possibilities.
It's an air force. His dragons are going to come to breathe fire on his troops. His dragons going to attack their dragons. I think that will be the role. That and taking down castle walls.
But cool. That's going to be so amazing to see on screen, I prefer character stories and character development, but I like hot dragon action.
I've seen a lot of car chases and gunfights. I've seen a lot of. I haven't seen a lot of aerial dragon combat. So.
Yeah, there is a dearth of that in popular media.
Well, hey, the movie Dunkirk.
That's true. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think that I don't know if this is too far-fetched, but I really want. I don't know when it would happen during the season, but I really want Bran to be the one who helps there. It's just when he sees his his home being attacked because he has this deep connection with Winterfell, that maybe that pushes him to use his powers in different ways, and that's when he gets to work into the Ice Dragon, kind of push him away from Winterfell. And then when the Night King realizes that his Ice Dragon has been taken control over by Bran, that's when he flies away, trying to escape that Bran's possession in a way, or organ. But then again, I start thinking, like, how does the magic of this dragon work? Because it's not fire, because if it were fire, it would just kill the dragon instantly when it breathes a bit. It's blue fire. So is it cold? Is it using energy? Like, how does it destroy castle walls? Because how did it destroy the wall in the first place? Was it just a wave of energy that was hitting the ice? Because, was it hot in any way? Was it just magic? I mean,
all of the above.
I'd like to have an explanation.
Sean says all of the above.
I think the showrunner said that it was fire, but I still think that could be a pretty broad term. There are a lot of different... It could be ice fire or magic fire.
Nothing burns like the cold is kind of a thing.
One thing I supposed was whether it's ice or fire or magic, whatever it is, it's just the actual blast itself taking down the castle walls. The force of the blast, whether it's hot or cold or magical or whatever.
And we certainly see that. I mean, dragon fire is hotter than regular fire. So Viserion's like magical undead fire should, something's going on there.
It's like a negative fire.
Yeah. Another factor here is the long night itself and winter. I mean, wherever this army goes, it brings the cold with it. We've seen the kind of spiraling cold thing that comes with the army as they move, and that's obviously going to play some sort of impact. And it seems to be part of why they've moved a little slower in the shorter term, is because they were kind of waiting for winter to take hold. That's been kind of a long-standing, almost, I wouldn't even call it a theory, necessarily, kind of a belief that a lot of people hold. And that's got to be huge too. I mean, just thinking about them in a siege situation, if they're just standing outside your castle just kind of waiting and starving you out, are they like making it freezing inside the walls while you're sitting there? Like I can imagine that's the thing because they're just bringing winter with them. And it's also just a challenge for the show. Like if they're going to have a real long night, I mean, graphically speaking, how do they... Shooting that seems like a challenge.
Dark all the time.
Yeah, like how do they film that? So I wonder if they're going to dispense with some of the darkness, you know, just for physically, just for shooting purposes, just for filming this. You know, that's a real big challenge for them. I really wonder how they're going to handle that. So, but I do think winter is going to matter a lot. Like we talked about the Dothraki before and all that. So that's something that has to be considered, but it's kind of difficult to predict. Another interesting concept to think about is the Night King, the potential for the Night King to have hand-to-hand fighting scenes. Now, riding a dragon kind of makes that less likely. You know, he's flying around, he's kind of out of who's going to hit him with a sword when he's up there flying around. I always thought that people would someone would fight him because that's Vladimir Furtick, who is one of the lead stunt guys for the show, and he's the guy who filmed Arthur Dayne's fight scenes. So he knows how to fight like for real. So it seems like they might want to do that, but I don't know, maybe now that he's got a dragon, I think that's a lot less likely.
I think the dragon will come down, he'll hop off and hack and slash.
Chop some people down.
Yeah.
I really, after this season, I never had cared or thought about this idea before, but I really just want Arya to do it. Whether it's through like a dagger, through sneaking up on him, not just brute force fighting, or whether it's through an arrow.
Archery has been foreshadowed.
Yeah, something like that. I would love it.
That scene, right, where she's talking about firing arrows at night when no one else is around, right? When Father turned out to be watching her, but she thought she was by herself. She just had the one arrow over and over. The one arrow.
I like that, but there is someone who already has the appropriate title for this job. Jaime is the Kingslayer. Ken has a Valyrian steel sword.
He does. That is pretty cool.
He's on his way.
Right on.
This is true. They have set up Jon staring him down a couple times though, so obvious the choice is I think if they're going to give anybody the executioner's job as far as Night King is concerned, it's probably Jon. But yeah, I agree. I think I hope we get to see him on the ground, just more hand to hand. Although if they are foreshadowing Jon becoming a dragon rider in his own right, maybe that's how they'll get that duel done.
We can get like some Prince Daemon action where Jon jumps from his dragon to the back of Viserion and fights the Night King like that.
I had raised this in a previous episode, but just if the Night King's able to throw that magical javelin that hard, he's got to be really, really strong. So it's hard for me to picture him in a one-on-one combat situation with Jon Snow.
That kind of this brings us back to Arya. Arya hasn't faceless manned anyone. Yeah. Right? Since she got to Westeros, other than the phrase. So maybe her assassin training is, we talked about this earlier in the season, maybe she sneaks up on Night King, because no one can stand him hand to hand, but if someone can sneak up on him...
I remember we joked about the idea of her, managing to take a White Walker's face. It's just really funny.
She would come up with Littlefinger's face, and they'll just not recognize that as a threat, and so she can get close that way.
Yeah, that is what else we talked about, is the idea of her taking Littlefinger's face, of saving it, and going south as well to get Cersei. But
wow.
But yeah, I mean, Arya does have that special dagger. Like, we know it's special because it was in that book that Sam was reading. So if Arya, ended up with that dagger, there's a reason behind that. She's gonna use it for something big, other than killing Littlefinger.
Yeah, that
they
wasn't big enough.
that dagger over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. That dagger matters.
All right, we got a super chat I think we can get to.
Yeah.
From Perry. Can't another dragon kill Viserion? Seems like probably, yeah.
It's kind of hard to say.
Whites are destroyed by fire, and that would be fire hitting a dragon, so probably, but... Yeah,
that really could be. I feel like, we've seen dragons fighting each other in the Dance of Dragons, and the older dragons are not terribly harmed by dragon fire, but we did see one of the younger ones blinded by dragon fire in a dragon-on-dragon fight, so... It's not even...
dragon still might work differently.
Right, exactly. I'm not
but
clear
it still
on
might
this.
put the other dragons in danger to do it. The biggest danger to a dragon is another dragon. So one of the other dragons might be able to take him out, but may get taken out themselves.
Okay. All right.
Unless you have any other thoughts on dragons killing dragons, we can move on to these other two comments.
Any of our guests have a thought on dragons versus Viserion, living dragons versus dead dragons? Or is that just too...
I haven't really thought about it. I just picture them fighting like normal dragons fight, just like trying to bite each other's necks and yeah.
Yeah.
Just hope the
But
good guy
I
wins.
see Dany having a hard time attacking Viserion now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Oh,
point.
yeah.
Just emotionally speaking, that'd be difficult.
Yeah.
It'll be a whole season of betrayals for her.
And maybe it was just that scene, but Viserion seemed really fast, like seemed faster than Drogon. You know, maybe that was just the way they filmed that scene, but he was just turbo dragon.
He might be
Seemed like
charged
it,
up
yeah.
by the Night King's powers, you know.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Or will the wind from the storm that the Night King brings also maybe gives him a bit of speed and
Ooh.
yeah.
Maybe slows the other dragons down. I was wondering if that was going to be in that episode 6 when the dragons were flying there. I was wondering if the snow winds or the winds of winter, would affect their ability to fly normally or whatever. But so far, no. But it's still possible.
All right, we got another super chat that's related from Ajon Starkarian. Arrows bounce off dragons. Would a dragon glass tipped arrow kill Viserion?
Maybe a scorpion would work.
Yeah, maybe with the.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. A
I
scorpion
think you still have
size.
to have enough force.
Yeah.
Like, when Sam stabs the White Walker with the dragon glass, what if it was like an infant stabbing the, if it,
Yeah,
you have to have enough force to
Why would Sam
penetrate
stab an
even if it
infant?
is
There's one that had already been turned.
Yeah, maybe a dragon glass scorpion bolts would work. I think to kill Viserion, but I don't think it would just kill obviously a regular dragon.
Yeah,
That'd be cool if Qyburn walked away from Cersei. She's like, we're just gonna hang out here and see what happens. He's like, what? I want to see these zombies. Come on. No one walks away from me.
All right,
Then
another
we'll
super
see who
chat.
really owns Gregor.
Purple She-Wolf for Sean. Any kind of Sansa love deserves respect. This was from a while ago, but
Yeah,
All right,
there you
yeah.
go. Thumbs up for
All right.
Sean.
Thumbs
next,
up for Sansa.
I don't think we did. Someone said we missed a super chat. I don't think we did.
I think
it
that was this
in
one.
that
Yeah.
From Perry. I think the giant will break the walls of Winterfell, i.e., from Sansa and Sweet Robin earlier on. Which is an interesting idea. It seems like Viserion is so set up to be the one to do it, but we have also seen those those giants coming through.
And you gotta think they're gonna want to put them in action, film some scenes with them doing something. Breaking into castles seems like a great way to kind of show us that, like ripping off the doors, or maybe he doesn't want to burn. Maybe this is one of those times where he doesn't want to burn his target. He wants to keep the humans from being incinerated.
Or it could be the other dragons are stopping it. They're the defense around a castle. The dragon's tied up, so the giants do it.
Well,
I also have supposed that the Night King might split his army up.
Mm.
You guys go down to White Harbor. You guys go down to Winterfell.
That would make it harder for the humans to deal with,
Sending in the giant would be an ironic twist on 1-1 smashing down the doors during the Battle of the Bastards, too. If you send in another giant through the doors, but this time it's a zombie one instead of a heroic one. That would
Wow.
That's
that
a great
would be quite
catch.
sad.
Very good.
He'd be named Tutu.
Yes, indeed. The dreaded, infamous, zombified Tutu the Giant.
So there's two aspects to this conversation. I think we've covered, for now, I think that's a good bit of coverage on how the Army of the Dead will function, like what they will do, maybe what their goals are, and where they might go first. Let's look at it from the other side of things. What will the humans do? How will they defend themselves? How will they prepare for this threat, and what kind of things will they do? Like, in other words, what's the defense going to do here? Obviously, the dragon glass is a pretty big part of it all.
I think they're going to use brave Sir Robin's defense.
Run
Run away!
They might have to. Winterfell doesn't seem like a good place to hold up. It just, despite the potential for hot water down in there, the neck might be a better place to try to, make a stand. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I have been having this idea lately that just getting a feeling that it would be like they might come up with the idea of like not that they need to, of course they need to defeat the Night King. Oh, that's what I have forgotten. They have to defeat the Night King for everyone else, for all the whites to die, right? So that will be their main purpose. So that's why I think like if the Night King, like the Night King will have to move away from his army so that they can, so it works in the show for them to fight both things at the same time, because I want them to trap all of the whites in one place, like in one castle or somewhere, and just blow it up, basically. that's the way I can see them figuring out how to get rid of a big mass of whites all at once.
Yeah, they could sabotage. They could set Winterfell up with a bunch of wildfire.
Let them come in.
Let them all take the walls down, come through, and then blow it all up. I don't know if they get 100,000 of them, but they might get 20,000 or something.
Wow.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because Jon kept mentioning, asking Tyrion how many people you can fit in King's Landing, and Tyrion said 1 million people. Hey, you can fit 1 million people in King's Landing. That's a lot more than there are whites. But of course, they would need to get all of those people out, or maybe they have all turned into whites. I don't know, but it would be interesting to see if that's what happens in King's Landing, because we did see it blown up in Dany's vision. So maybe that's the idea that I was getting. Like, hey, maybe they can do like a callback type of thing of not only Cersei blowing up the Sept while all those people were trapped in there, but also someone going in there to get it started and kind of commit that sacrifice, or like. Kind of like what Leaf did in the cave, where she sacrificed herself, but in order to blow up that bomb and get rid of a bunch of whites. So that's kind of what I saw happening, just because they keep doing these callback things. So maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I like the thought of the battle moving south, of the final defense moving south, and I like the idea of it being in the Vale in particular, because I think that they could, lead a pretty good defense from the Vale, where that I think the White Army couldn't move, they couldn't swarm them as easily there. I mean, they talk about how you can only really have people standing 2 by 2 going down certain parts of the Vale. So I could see that happening. The Night King still has his dragon that he can fly up there, but I don't know, I think they could have better luck.
Anything that, you're right, that's a good concept to mention. Anything that reduces the Army of the Dead's ability to use their numbers.
So that's where the Neck comes in too. The Neck, the Eyrie. I think both of those are good defensive locations.
I had another thought. This is a little more broad, but just cinematically, the way that I think this battle is going to be presented is much like Star Wars. Whereas you get this ground battle, you get a certain group of characters in a ground battle. Then you get an air battle. And then you get a sword fight. And you kind of bounce around between the X-Wings and the Jedi and the Stormtroopers. You'll have some soldiers underground with swords fighting the Whites. Then you'll have Jon fighting the Night King, individual combat, and then the dragons flying in the air fighting each other. I bet that's the climactic battle that we get to in episode 5 or whatever.
All right, that's cool. Another thing that we have that's worth mentioning going on in the North is, apart from the Dragon Glass, and apart from training, all the kids are learning to fight, and that's an ongoing effort, the training of the people. We also have basically all, if not literally all, of the named Valyrian steel blades in the North, and that's pretty interesting. Obviously, that's really helpful. That's basically the best weapon they have available, other than Drogon and Rhaegal,
and plot armor.
Yeah, nothing beats plot armor. Even nothing whatsoever defeats plot armor. So I think that's all really interesting, like how they're going to deal with all that, and how maybe, especially with, this is another reason I wanted to talk about Jaime today. Like, if they throw him in prison or something, they take his sword back. That was Ned Stark's half of his sword. But they gave him half of Ned Stark's sword. He gave it to Brienne, and then he got the other half back from Joffrey.
You remind me of something else that I meant to mention earlier when we were talking about the dynamics of Jon and Dany and who he really is or whatever. I don't know if Jon wants the Iron Throne. He was reluctant about being King of the North. He didn't want to be in charge of the watch, the wall. It keeps getting thrust on him. I can easily imagine, much like Bran, like, oh, Bran, you should be the Lord of Winterfell. It's like, I can never be the Lord of Winterfell. I have this other job to do now. I don't know if Jon, he might not be able to avoid it. It might get thrust on him, but I think there's a chance that some of this conflict that might come up with him and Dany might not be there, because he's like, look, I don't want to be the king. Don't tell anyone else. Let's just keep this secret. Ned kept it secret. We'll keep it secret.
Well, that's actually a good little segue to Eliana's topic, which is Jon and the reaction to people.
Let's take the super chat first.
Yeah, we'll do the super chat first, and then we'll move on to that.
All right, from Rebecca Maluk. Let's say that we will see Dragonbinder. Do you think that Dany will sacrifice Drogon and Rhaegal in order to bring down Viserion? Any
course, for our guests who may not be aware, we call him Viserion, Ice, get it? We're very clever. So, sacrifice Drogon. That's certainly an alternative idea to her being Nissa Nissa, is that the dragon could be,
Nissa Nissa. She loves him.
Yeah, and the dragons have also been thought of as Lightbringer themselves, which would be the instrument and not the thing that gets sacrificed. We haven't heard from Emmett Noel. What do you think about this?
Sadly, I doubt Dragonbinder's showing up. I'd love to see it, but I think it's a little late to throw a metaphysical instrument that important into the game, especially since we already have, I think, the show's equivalent of a dragon getting ensorcelled, which is what the Night King did.
Yeah.
So I think her relationship to her dragons is mostly going to be about that. I forget who said earlier that she's going to have some kind of emotional difficulty taking on one of her own children, even though he's been turned. I think that's more where her kind of focus in that regard goes.
Okay. Any other takes on that, Val or Eliana? All right, let's move on.
We got another super chat, just a comment from the Archmagus Eternal. Sean, is there a trench run?
A trench run?
Yeah,
Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. There easily could be, yeah.
A moat run. It'd be a moat run in this case. Yeah. That's pretty funny.
All right.
Okay, so folks, if you have more things to say about the topics we covered so far, we'll, of course, be having future Q&As and sessions that we can talk about these topics again. So send them to us. Feel free to mail us at westeroshistory@gmail.com. You can also email us on Patreon or send us messages on Twitter or Facebook, and we will answer them at a future time.
All right, so down to John's parentage.
Yeah, let's talk about John's parentage. So, Eliana, this was your chosen topic, so let's let you kick it off.
Yeah, it was going to be a great parallel to Jaime arriving in Winterfell, but
Oh, well.
It really was, though, because they're so similar. And anyways, so yeah, we know that a lot of people have been talking about Dany and Jon and how they're going to react to it, but we've already seen in season 6 that the Lords of the North and the Vale, they're just so loyal to Jon. So and that was sarcasm, and they're already they're like, maybe we should prop up Sansa. So what happens when they find out that Jon, without consulting anyone, has bent the knee to the Dragon Queen? But wait, there's more. He's also not even a Stark. So, does anyone have any thoughts on how that's going to play out?
I wanted to build on something Sean started off, and just to mention that what Sean was saying about Jon not wanting the throne, I think is totally true, but he's so very much a guy who puts duty first. And if he believes that the throne is his duty because he's the rightful heir, that is potentially a different way for him to think about it.
On one hand, I agree with you, but I'm still suspicious. I think this is a different Jon post-resurrection. I think what's driving him now to be King of the North isn't duty, it's consolidating forces to fight the Night King.
That's maybe his duty to defeat the undead. Yeah.
And I think that to the end that will unite people to fight the Night King, he might accept being the king, but that may not be the case. It might be more divisive. It might create more struggle, right? If it breaks the North apart over their loyalty to him. Maybe it makes it easier. Okay, fine. Sansa's queen of the North and Jon is king of the Seven Kingdoms. Maybe that'll simplify things, and he'll reluctantly take this thing on that he doesn't really want to, especially if Dany supports it. But I still think that I'm not sure. It depends on how this information is revealed. Who's revealed to?
I don't think it's gonna be revealed.
You don't think Bran will bring it up? You think they're just gonna?
No, I think it's gonna be revealed to Jon and Dany and them and anyone important. But I don't think they're just gonna tell the Northern Lords. I don't know why they would.
That's what I was thinking.
Go ahead.
I was thinking just that. Exactly that. So that Jon will have to decide what to do with that information before anyone else knows. And I feel like I had a question, because if it's true that Jon is the last hope, or was, because he isn't anymore really, but the last hope for the Stark name to survive, because there's no more. Bran is not going to have children, so there's no one else who can, bring
unless Sansa
keep that going except.
Yeah, Sansa could keep her name potentially. But...
Yeah, there's examples, especially from the books, where it's only a woman survives from a house, and they keep that name. Like I think Derry is an example of that.
It's rare, but I can see it happening with her.
It even happened with the case of one of the cases of that was, I believe, the Stark who married who had the kid with the Wildling girl. And the Wildling girl was the Wildling kid was the only living Stark, and that was a girl, I believe. In any case, there's several examples of that. So the Stark name can live on through the female line.
Also, new precedents can be set. If Dany can be queen, Cersei can be queen. If there's already Dany's talking about breaking the will, Tyrion's suggesting new ways of choosing leaders. I think that I like the idea that that's not a concern. That Sansa has a kid, and her kid can be the heir, and even if it's a girl, keep the name Stark.
Yeah.
Etc.
I like that. I like that. I was just thinking that it would kind of move the story in a certain direction if that was the case, that you can't, like, it's only Jon, the one who can keep it going. And then so Jon would not want to become a Targaryen because he's so tied to his Stark roots that he would want to declare himself as Stark. But I guess it makes sense for him to give it to Sansa, because I also figured Jon would want to give the throne to Dany, even though it's his by right. But I feel like he would want to give it up to Dany.
We have a super chat that addresses this from Meredith Glassberg just now, where she says Jon already said in the show that the throne doesn't matter when he first meets Daenerys. So he's said something about that.
He's also said, here's the other thing, just to play devil's advocate, we had that long spiel from him in the Dragon Pit about how everyone has, people need to be honest, and how important it is to be honest. Would he think that hiding the truth of his identity is something that's like okay? I can see him doing it because of it being public would cause a lot of problems. But he just did the harder thing because he wasn't willing to lie to Cersei. So I don't know. This is like Jon has a lot. This is very much like Jon being a lot like Ned and a bit like Stannis, where he just rules is rules, man.
I like people pointing out that Ned kept a secret.
Yeah, Ned. There's a difference between actively telling a lie and not revealing a secret. Yes. So it may end up requiring him to lie, and he may need to learn to do that.
That's actually a fantastic point, because if Jon learns of his identity, he's going to naturally figure out that Ned lied about it.
Yeah.
And that may change his mind on when lying is okay. He might have the wrong idea about lying, because if he thinks his father was totally honest all the time, he's going to find out, A, it wasn't his father, B, he wasn't honest all the time.
And we also saw Arya evaluating Ned's morality. Like, I knew I was breaking the rules, but I knew he was smiling, so there must be something wrong with the rules, so.
Ooh, that's a great point, too.
Jon could maybe come to that realization as well.
Okay.
I wanted to point out one other thing, though, another problem with the Northern Lords, who are already, frustrated with the Jon left. They were there for Sansa in the first place. Jon's not only going to come back having bent the knee to Dany, but also, I made a deal with Cersei. Oh, and here's Jaime to come help us. Left and right, there's going to be things that are going to be suspicious and frustrating to the Northern Lords.
All right, Eliana, so you had a couple of different characters in particular you wanted to talk about their reactions and what that might be, so take us to our first one here.
Yeah, sorry, I was also thinking about how you were saying that perhaps it might not even come out, and I was just trying to think of ways that it could. One character that is in Winterfell who knows Jon's true parentage is the other character who thrust him into leadership in the first place, which is Sam. So depending on what sort of faith and beliefs Sam has, he could be, I guess, one venue for Jon's parentage to come out against his own will.
Or on accident, even.
He might get there, and Jon might arrive at Winterfell to find out everyone already knows. He's like, I'm the last to know.
I mean,
that would be great.
Totally possible. And he walks into the room, and everyone just turns to look at him, and he's like, what? But,
you stand accused of being a Targaryen.
Being a bastard still, but not a bastard. Anyway. Yeah, so some of the characters that I listed out here were like, how might Bran feel? He might not have any feelings to feel such a thing.
Is he Bran? Yeah, does he even identify with Jon as a brother anymore? I don't know.
Yeah, and one way, another thing that would be really interesting to see how it plays out is, of course, like the long-awaited reunion between Jon and Arya. Like, would this complicate their relationship as like brother and sister? Would would she still feel? She would probably still feel as close to him, but how does that, if Jon's parentage becomes a wedge once more between like Sansa's claim and Jon's claim, you know, does that mean we reignite the like Stark sister feud again of whose side is Arya taking? I'd rather we not go there. And then as you were talking about, how will the other lords feel? You know, they've already started becoming restless with Jon being gone. And then, you know, we've started seeing maybe Bronzion Royce becoming maybe more of a bigger character. So, you know, he has charge of the Vale Lords. How might that all play out?
Yeah, and he does not like Targaryen. He was like one of the loud people that was like, you can't trust a Targaryen.
Yeah, I expected to see not just conflict based on Jon being a Targaryen, whether that comes out or not, but just conflict based on the fact that he's allied with Daenerys and is maybe going to be marrying her, or at least clearly romantic. That I think Sansa and Arya will be jealous. They will not just totally warm up to Daenerys immediately, as much as I would like that.
I mean, Tyrion saw those two hook up, and people discuss that scene a lot, and there's a lot of things happening in Tyrion's mind, a lot of reasons for him to be worried. But he doesn't know the half of it. I mean, he doesn't know about Jon's identity, and he doesn't know about Jon's claim. Mm-hmm. So that's just a whole. Yeah, he was right to be worried about that, and now, but it's even worse than he thinks.
Well, worse or better? I wonder if Tyrion would be like, okay, this makes it easy now, or is he like, okay, this ruins everything?
It doesn't change the fact that he still has this big problem of romance. It doesn't mix with ruling. You know, like, what if she just starts taking all of Jon's advice on everything? What if she just listens to Jon on everything instead of taking advice from her counsel? What if she...
It worked out well for Rob.
Yeah, so there's just a lot. Yeah, so there's just... You can see why, there's a lot of things that can throw the situation off, and he doesn't even know some of the factors yet. He doesn't know Jaime's going to show up. He doesn't know Night King's through the wall. I mean, yeah, there's just... so many other things are wrong here. Yeah, I like, Eliana, that you mentioned Arya and Sansa.
I thought that Tyrion knew things, though.
He hasn't had enough to drink lately. Those two things go together. He drinks and he knows things. It's not or. Okay, so Sansa is really, that's a big question. Let's focus on her for a minute. How is she going to react to this? Because she might have, she's loyal to her family, but she's got maybe a little bit of ambition, and she understands politics. She's coming into her own even more all the time, especially now how she handled Littlefinger. What is this going to do to her? What is she going to feel about this? Emmett, we haven't heard from you in a while. What do you think about Sansa's? Any predictions on how Sansa might take all this information?
I don't think Sansa or Arya will be personally antagonistic towards Jon himself over it, but they might feel a little more estranged and alienated from him, especially if he seems to be vacillating between his two selves. They might feel like he's not an outright traitor, but just turning his back on the part, like they've been waiting so long to reunite as the Starks, and now he's kind of severed from that identity a little bit, or at least there's a competitive identity with that. So I think, I think Sean's absolutely right. There's a very good chance Jon won't have any interest in claiming the Iron Throne for himself. But what might push him in that direction is if the Northern Lords or the Vale Lords become less than fond of him, or even more less than fond of him that they already are. And then I don't think Sansa would turn her back on him, but she might advise him to, or she might, that might be the spur for him moving in a more Targaryen direction, or a more Iron Throne and Dany focused direction, is if the lords turn on him and his sisters are less than enthused about the whole thing.
Right on. Is this a related question?
Not really.
Not really. Okay, we'll get to that later then. And another thing that's kind of tricky is mixed in with this is Jon's feelings on, as well as Dany's, on the whole situation of incest. Now, these two themselves aren't necessarily the Northerners, but the rest of the North's feeling on their relationship would come into it as well. Both, as we're told in the books, both the incest is a abomination in the eyes of the old gods and the new. And as far as we know, that's basically the case in the show as well. That maybe hasn't been clarified as far as I can recall. But there's a lot of people that would object to this relationship. And if they're hooking up and they're really liking each other, that's a huge problem. They're going to have to decide, it could come back to what Maester Aemon said to Jon. Duty is you can't have love and duty at the same time. And I'm guessing Jon chooses duty over love, but if Daenerys may have other thoughts on the matter, and if one of them rejects the other, and the other isn't cool with that, they don't agree with the reasoning behind it, that could cause all kinds of personal issues. It's very, very difficult. Who haven't we heard from in a while? Val, do you have any other thoughts on this situation? Any other characters we haven't mentioned whose reactions might be really important?
No. I can't think of anyone else right now.
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot of people involved here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let us take the super chat then.
All right, from J.M. Barbarossa. What if Nightfort was crastering people to White Walkers to keep the realm safe?
I think he means Night King, not
Okay,
Night
I
Fort,
was wondering.
yeah.
I just read what he wrote. Is Martin trolling with Prince that was promised? And real meaning is that Jon is promised to be handed over to the White Walkers because of his powerful mixed bloodline. That is I don't know if I'd call it a popular theory, but a theory that has persisted, that the idea is that the Night King might have needed to be a Stark or needed to be a Green Seer in order to become Night King, because he clearly is different from the other White Walkers. So what disambiguates him from the other White Walkers? So the idea is that maybe you have to be a Stark, or if not a Stark, you have to have Green Seer blood. So the idea is that Jon is meant to be turned into the new Night King, or Bran is, or any other idea like that they need a Stark to continue their line. Because I think basically kind of what this question is getting.
They promised a Stark baby. That's the idea here.
So
the prince that was promised was.
I think elements of this theory are out there, and maybe there are clues for it. I'm not super into the idea, but there are clues that maybe Night King is arranging things in a certain way.
Maybe they need a Targaryen baby, or a Stark Targaryen baby specifically.
That would explain why. That would back up your earlier theory.
He does mean the Night Fort. He says, I mean that they traffic babies through the Night Fort to the White Walkers.
Oh!
So he did mean that.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they were basically... Okay, so let's back this up. So he's saying that the people at the Night Fort were giving the White Walkers babies in order to prevent an invasion. It was like, hey, if they get this, they'll leave us alone. This is the lesser of two evils. It's evil to give up these babies, but it's worse than...
Oh, the babies are all going to die if we get taken over. So.
Right. It's kind of a, kind of the same logic behind burning Shireen to save everyone. Maybe not accurate, but similar sort of thinking. Okay. The Night Fort is the oldest castle on the wall, so, you never know what was going on back then. And the Night Fort was the seat of Night King in the books. So, who was apparently the 13th Lord Commander. Night's King, yes, it's different. Night's King versus Night King. There are two. Book and show. A little slight difference there. And, yeah, that's kind of interesting. There's certainly a lot of sacrifice back in the day. In the North and everywhere, there's all this talk the old gods took sacrifices. We see tons of evidence of it in the books. It hasn't really been brought up much in the show, though, except for this Craster baby thing.
And Melisandre.
No, I mean in part of the old gods. Yes, there's a lot of Melisandre. Yeah. So that's really tricky. But I like that idea. We can't really answer it clearly. We don't know. Obviously, nobody knows for sure except maybe George. But the idea that there is some big trick behind this prophecy, I mean, it certainly it fits really well with the idea that prophecies aren't what you think, and you can't trust prophecies, and maybe Rhaegar was trying to make a kid, a fire and ice kid to give to the White Walkers. That's it seems a little hard to swallow, but yeah. Anyway, any other takes on this? Do you, Val? Do you have any takes on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea that the son of Ice and Fire is what the Night King is after for whatever reason. But I mean, I don't know. I also like that idea of Jon taking over that Night King spot in a way, and then just another one of the many bittersweet endings that we could get. It's just him becoming the ultimate duty person. Like all of everything is about keeping Westeros safe, and that would be the best way to do it, is just like to control all of the dead and keep them away from Westeros. But yeah, I don't know. It's so difficult to say what it could be, like the whole prophecy part.
The book, with the whole suggestion from the book that the Night's King was the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, really sounds like that's going to be paralleled. Then Jon being king, he is a king, and he was in the Night's Watch. You know, blah blah blah. That fits. In terms of those definitions.
I don't know. Parallels that are maybe a stretch, or at least make you think of certain things happening. With the Night's King, originally was said to have married a female other, right?
Yes.
So the idea that in this permutation of it, like if Dany's with Jon, who becomes Night King, is an other type figure. It's just a gender swap type thing.
She would marry him.
Yeah, it would be kind of the opposite thing. I think there's some things that resonate across it. This is still me thinking. I think it's pretty crackpot. I think it's a little tinfoily, but it's popular for a reason. People talk about it because it is possible.
Yeah, it's some. I mean, it isn't. I wouldn't say there's a lot of evidence for it, but it's supported by evidence that exists. The evidence could be for other things that are similar.
Mm-hmm.
Something I've thought about in the books is that there's so much, as you're reading, all of it comes through what you're reading, right? So there will be dialogue, descriptions of landscape, thoughts in someone's mind. It's all being read. And so a thing that might be a clue or a piece of foreshadowing or an important statement that's made or thought that's had, it's all meshed in with all the words that you've read, right? But on the show, the landscape's in the background. You don't really know what the thoughts are. But when someone says something, it's key, it's important, it's remembered, it's looked at, it's referenced. And so I wonder if in the books maybe it's easier to disguise a plot line because there's so many words you're reading. But in a show, when someone says something, it's hard to be disguised. It's hard to keep it from leading to plot lines. So maybe they throw a lot of red herrings in there to keep us from keying in on what the end of the show is. You know what I mean? If to get to the end, certain lines have to be spoken, and if we can pluck those lines out and determine the end, well, they have to throw a bunch of other lines and a bunch of other scenery and a bunch of other things in there to keep us from figuring out what the truth is. Sometimes I wonder these theories that people come up with is because they put clues into those theories, but they're not correct. They're just to disguise the one true storyline that's happening.
All right.
One true storyline.
The one true storyline. Why isn't it about Stannis? Okay, so unless anyone else has any takes on this, we can move on to our leaks topic and call it a night. Anybody else have takes on Night King and Jon Snow before we move on?
I totally agree with Sean. I think that's something both in the books and the show is like putting out feelers for theories you're not going to do, or just putting out red herrings because there's so much stuff that's predicted and predictable. So yeah, I think that's definitely a factor to keep in mind.
Cool. Yeah, it's actually really smart to consider the different ways that the show and books present us with evidence and theories, and just we talk at length all throughout the season and throughout off season about how different the mediums are. And how they have to communicate things different ways. Just the vast difference between reading someone's thoughts and seeing what's on screen is huge, because when you read someone's thoughts, it's basically genuine. And sure, they can be mistaken, but on the TV when Jaime Lannister is telling Brienne about what really happened, anyone who hasn't read the books they get the sense that this is true because of how emotional it is, and how the way he's delivering it. But for a fact it's real when you read it in the book because it's in his head. He's not lying to himself. Well, I mean, maybe in Cersei's point of view chapters, you have that. But still, that's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so let's talk about leaks and coverage. So what I'll start with, I'll have everyone talk about whether you got spoiled on anything, and then how you handled leaks, and then we'll talk about strategy for avoiding leaks next time, and like what worked and what didn't. We can start with us. We'll set the tone here. The three of us were sort of on, not exactly on different levels, but Ashea had read some script stuff. So she didn't watch the leaks, but she had some script leaks.
I watched one bit of a leak. I watched the Night King throw his ice javelin because I just couldn't believe that was what was going to happen. I just was aghast at the idea that was what was going to happen. And it did. It did. But no, I like reading the leaks, but I also like it when the leaks are I don't know, a mishmash. They're unorganized. They're hard to keep track of everything. So I still have this doubt in my head of whether or not it's legit, whether or not I read it correctly or interpreted this correctly. So even when I get leaked on, when I get spoiled, and I still have doubt in my head. So it doesn't ruin the enjoyment for me. But even with all that, I got spoiled due to our chat. Someone told me that Gendry is safe and he runs back to Eastwatch. And I thought because the Hound had his hammer, I thought he was doomed. I thought he was going to die. So even I got spoiled, even like trying to spoil myself.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's been very valuable to us because she, like you said, managing the chat boxes for us, she's able to point out when someone's like offering a theory that's actually a spoiler, and so she can kind of protect Sean and I from a lot of that. So that was basically how we did it. But I was spoiled on Viserion's death by a troll who made his name the spoiler. Because
Viserion dies.
When we ban someone from the chat here, it says blankety blank has been banned. So it said Viserion dies has been banned. So that was next level trolling. Luckily you missed that. It was when we were on the stream together, and I happened to glance at the chat box and that happened, and you didn't look, and I was like, I moved the window so you couldn't see it.
Every time I start to try to watch a chat box, you turn to me and say, Sean, what do you think about that? And I'm like, think about what? I'm sorry, I was looking at the chat box, I didn't hear what you said. So I want so bad to read it, and I often at the end of the episode go back and read as far back as I can, but I just lose track of what's going on when I try to read it in the middle of the actual broadcast.
So all three of our guests, you guys are all, part of the fandom in overlapping but different ways. We're all part of the fandom. We all make content. We're all creators, but we're all involved in different ways. Now, Eliana, yours is one of the most curious about, because as a Reddit mod, you guys just have. It must have been really hard.
It's so fun. It's not. It's not. Yes. So everyone's different. Some people enjoy seeing leaks and spoilers. Some people don't. I'm one of those who doesn't. Like Aziz, I enjoy experiencing the story with the rest of the community and like as things come out. And I also I like experiencing things as they go. So unfortunately, by nature of being a moderator, I never completely avoid. I can never completely avoid leaks or spoilers. I actually was able to avoid quite a bit this season, surprisingly, and that's because the way that we've set up the team, we've set it up so that everyone like supports each other, and there are people who are aware of the leaks and spoilers, and we can just depend on one another to handle those, and no one spoils anything for each other. But there are quite a few people, as you said, who will go out of their way to put it in their username, or we have the system where people report infractions of the rules, and so sometimes you'll get something that looks like an innocuous theory, but it's someone just sort of sandwiching the leaks and pretending it's their theory, so you kind of end up finding out that way. And then there were a couple things in the chat, because I also like participating in the history of cat in the history of Westeros.
He was rubbing his face against the camera. I had to move.
He wants to be on camera. Oops.
He tell us about how he dealt with leaks. So yeah, there were some things in the chat as well, but all in all, I would say that I did a pretty good job, I think. Well, not I did a good job. Everyone on the team did a pretty good job of making sure that people who didn't want to be spoiled weren't. And surprisingly, I didn't see any leaks on Twitter.
Oh, great. Yeah, I didn't either somehow.
Yeah.
We have a friend who got spoiled on something by reading an article in National Review, of all places. Just he's reading a newspaper, online news, and just there was a shot of Viserion, like the blue eye. He said, "It's like what?
Yeah.
What do you have? Do you guys come up with any new strategies for next time? Is there any kind of, well, we should do this next time to avoid leaks? Is there kind of new strategies you have, or did you basically said what you did sounded like it worked pretty well? So maybe you don't need to do anything differently."
Yeah, the system's pretty effective. It's just that, there's going to be people who go out of their way to make trouble no matter what, or just people who want to engage and they don't realize that maybe don't talk about leaks here, talk about leaks here. And you know, I think the system works pretty well for the current format that we have for the show. One of the things, and I have, we're making plans for it, but we don't exactly have that hammered out yet, is what would we do if the Winds of Winter, like, were to be leaked?
Yeah.
God forbid. But I don't know.
Yeah, that would be rough. We're not sure how we're gonna handle regular Winds of Winter. Leaks would be just
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. Did you have anything else? Was there any other thoughts you had on that?
If you're watching this and you're on Reddit, if you see people spoiling things for other people, please use the report button.
Good advice. Okay, so Emmett, you have, as a journalist and, as a blogger, there's, people...
Active on Tumblr and Twitter as well. You have a few social media places you might have gotten spoiled.
Yeah, so how did it go for you this year? And, what do you have planned for next time?
I got spoiled on a couple things, just things I saw floating around message boards and whatnot. I knew about the circumstances of Littlefinger's death a little bit before it happened. I knew that a dragon got involved in the north. I didn't know it got turned and used to bring down the wall, but I knew that there was going to be fighting involved in that way. And I got someone knows that I like any of the stuff involving the others and bears. That's always just some of my favorite stuff in the series. So someone enthusiastically spoiled me on how Thoros dies in that regard. So I got spoiled little bits and pieces as I went, but I didn't watch anything. I didn't read any particular scene description, in part because it's like I said, it's very jumbled, and it's kind of a mess and just kind of a headache to plow through, honestly. And it's just not particularly enjoyable. Like, it's not, I mean, that sounds banal, but it's like, it's not fun. Like, especially like if there was a low resolution leak of a show that like is built around its visual spectacle and its grandeur. It's like, why would I watch a cheaper version of that instead of waiting 2 days when I could watch the real thing, or as Eliana said, with everyone else who's watching? I mean, even putting aside the ethical implications, and there are many, I don't see the appeal. Like, I could see it if it was, I could see being tempted if it was the Winds of Winter and you think like it's going to be months and months and months away and I'm not going to be able to stand it. But for a show that was coming out on a week by week basis, it would baffle me, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if the Winds of Winter got leaked, if they got hacked, I wouldn't care about any ethical considerations, which I do care about it when it comes to these hacks and leaks. Like, I was more likely to watch the high-quality episode 6 leak that had, that was just accidentally aired versus, HBO being hacked and, like, being held hostage like that. I'm not likely to ever watch that. I didn't watch the Orange is the New Black leaks either. It's just awful and bad quality, and don't want to support that kind of active action.
Right on.
But
I can't understand. I mean, I can see people are impatient, or maybe even like want to be first, or I don't know, maybe someone playing dumb and making prediction. I could see reasons for it. I think that they're weak reasons, and I think most of those people are in the minority. Although I don't think they're necessarily mean or evil, but I think actively trying to spoil it for other people, that's the one that bothers me.
That's really that's just awful. Like, just trying to ruin someone's experience for like, how do you get joy out of that? Like,
we got a question here that I wanted to raise from Sobaniri KS. Do you think less of creators or fandom who publicize the leaks? And I think it varies probably for all of us. I think sometimes I do look a little askance at someone who jumps ahead, and usually it's more because they don't do a good job of obscuring what the spoilers are.
Yeah.
They still have something clickbaity or something that might spoil someone inadvertently. And I definitely look a little more askance at them when it's something that was hacked versus just leaked on accident.
Yeah, it's actually, I'm glad you brought the question up before we got Val's take, because I know that Val, as a YouTuber, I mean, you do other stuff besides just YouTube, but you're, the most YouTube dedicated of all of us here. And there's a lot of our fellow creators were making videos in the leaks, and I don't have a problem with them doing that. Like you say, Shay, as long as they're keeping it on the down low, as long as like this video contains leaks, that's totally fine. Because a lot of people have told me, a lot of other creators say, hey, I got a lot of requests to cover the leaks. And if your fans want you to cover the leaks, then by all means do it. Just keep it, just be careful with your social media posts. That's it. So yeah, I don't think less of them. I definitely, if you're publishing, if you're not being careful, if you're accidentally spoiling people, then I do think less of them. Because, like, it's really easy to take those precautions. Mm-hmm. So, Val, what about you? Did you get spoiled on anything? Your situation was different because you were traveling also. So this probably made everything a little different and tricky.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the leaks for season 7 were... They happened so early on that like we had a really long time to get spoiled on a lot of stuff. My rule is I don't leak. I don't read.
You don't leak. Whoa! You're a highly evolved being.
Figured out some solutions. But no. I don't read the leaks. I never read a leaked plot. I will only look at like leaked images of the actors filming on set because those never tell me they don't tell me exactly what's happening in the plot. Like I will know that, for example, these two characters will meet at some point, but I still have enough room for prediction. Like I need to figure out how they will meet or what they will talk about when they're together, like all these things. But I don't like to read the leaks and have it all told, word by word type of thing. But there are some things that you can't escape from, that like and they're coming from the leaks even if you didn't read them, like all the Ice Dragon posters that all the artists were making. Like it's I was pretty sure that came from the leaks. I kept hearing about the Ice Dragon all over the place, and so I knew that was going to happen. I mean, I still hoped that it didn't, but at the same time, I still found it pretty cool that it happened. But what else? Surprisingly, I didn't get spoiled when the episode 6 got leaked early. I was still using Twitter. And surprisingly, I didn't read anything. I was still using YouTube. I didn't see any thumbnails with the Ice Dragon or anything. Like a lot of people got spoiled that way, and I was super lucky that I didn't. But another thing that I didn't like is also that what you guys were saying is how people will make predictions and they're not telling you that they're from the leaks. They're just, saying it as their own prediction. And not only that, but also I did have one stream where like in the chat, I was being asked questions and I got asked this question a few times. It's like, what is the reason for the dragon to go save Jon? And I'm like,
what?
I didn't understand the question. I'm like, why do you get like, and then I clued in after I was done the stream, like, oh my God, is that what's going to happen? Is that what people write in the leaks? God damn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sucked. But so I didn't find out too much, luckily. So, I was happy with just the pictures, the leaked pictures and leaked information from like Watchers on the Wall, like all the stuff. So
there's some big things you could see from those leaked pictures just because you knew that people are on set together. I mean, that was the first real set of spoilers that we got. How can you not notice that Kit Harington's on set with Emilia Clarke and Liam Cunningham and all these people? How can you not see that they're all at the Dragon Pit? They couldn't keep it locked down.
Yeah, I mean, there's different people in different countries. Like, people get spotted in the airport or something like that, This dude showed up in Iceland, that can only... Like, why else would they be in Iceland, Well, there just happens to be a lot of Game of Thrones being filmed there, and, they show up there. Yeah, it's really weird because of... people are so keyed in on it. It's kind of a new problem. I mean, it's not new for Game of Thrones, but it's an evolving problem. And there were rumors that they filmed fake scenes to throw people off. And I never confirmed whether that's true. Is that true, or was that just a rumor?
I never saw anything about it being true. Personally.
I think there was one scene that I remember that we didn't see happen. And there were some other things, like some actors that were spotted filming, and then we didn't see them either. Like Edmure, Edmure was supposedly filming scenes, and we didn't see him. The girl, the little bird, the one girl that talked to,
Pycelle. I mean, that talked to Kai Byrne and all that.
Yeah.
She was supposed to have filmed. Yeah, if you look at the preliminary outline, there are definitely scenes that were supposed to have been filmed that they planned to film or had some idea for, but it was cut. So, like, I don't know that those are fake scenes, but it's possible there were fake scenes. But, like, that one, the little bird one, I don't think was, for example.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. So there's that explanation, but the other one that I did think might have been a fake scene was the one, or maybe it was meant for another show, but it was the one with the explosion where we saw like this hooded man that was like looking at something, and then something exploded, and he like yells Khaleesi or something, and everyone was freaking out. Like, is that Jorah? Is he gonna get burned? Or like all these things. Yeah, there was this one video that was really interesting. Like everyone was trying to like figure out what that meant, like what that explosion is. Is it a dragon? Is it's another kind of explosion? But it seemed to happen like with a hooded man at night, just looking at this box or something, and it exploded. So I was wondering if that was one of the fake scenes that they filmed.
Yeah, we never saw anything.
But it did
like
seem
that,
like something expensive to do for it to be fake.
That's why I'm generally pretty down on the idea that they filmed fake scenes, just because I mean there's things that we wanted to see period that they didn't film, like and there's I don't know, it bothers me. It rubs me the wrong way to picture them investing money into doing fake scenes when there's things we didn't even get that I felt we deserved.
Yeah, that's why I didn't accept that rumor face value, because it just seemed like really filming, like that's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive. I could see them having fake scenes out there, like leaked through text and through things like that.
Yeah.
Or, like in that outline, like I could see them disseminating information in that way, but it's hard for me to picture them spending however much it would cost for even a day's filming.
Yeah, I mean, you could see like a cameraman being like texting his buddy, like, I can't believe what I just filmed, you know, that kind of thing. Like, there's almost nothing they can do about that. But yeah, the fakes, it's a whole different ballgame with fake, you know, misinformation coming from the show.
I'll say now that there are supposedly leaks out for season 8, but one, how would they be out, those ones be out? And two, it just like HBO isn't cracking down on them at all. It does not seem like they're legit. So I would say we're generally safe out there right now, that we don't seem to have any leak material, except for the fact that in the preliminary outline there were maybe some clues and hints for what's going to happen in season 8 that could be considered spoilery, scenes that were cut that it doesn't seem like maybe they were necessarily cut, but that they were moved to season 8. So there's a little bit out.
Yeah, so that all
like
makes
John and Danny getting married.
Not that.
Ghost riding Drogon. We've been really waiting for that. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. Okay, that covers it. I think that is a wrap. So,
all right.
Thanks everybody for joining. Looks like how many people did we get? We got over 600 live viewers today. Did we get over 700 at any point?
No, I don't think we got over 700. We got like 650 at one point.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much.
I guess y'all don't want me to dance. All right.
Yeah, it's an open offer.
You should have said anytime.
Anytime.
If I didn't clarify that before.
So also, thanks very much to our wonderful guests. I want to make sure everyone knows how to find more of you guys. So first off, Eliana, tell everyone how to find more Eliana.
So you can just you can find more Eliana on Reddit, and you can find a lot of other great people on Reddit too. Over on the A Song of Ice and Fire subreddit, I'm Glass Table Girl there, and you can find me at the Maester Monthly podcast, link below, as well as Maester Monthly on Twitter. Or you can find me, currently my handle is the Shitadol. That's going to be way easier for you to find than like my actual username. So that's me too.
Yeah.
Right.
Bye.
And you'll also see her in our chat quite often.
Yeah, she's one of our chats.
I'm there a lot.
Yeah, with a little wrench next to her name for being mod.
It is lit, as the kids say.
Okay, and poor Quentyn. Tell everyone how to find more poor Quentyn.
So yeah, I go by Poor Quentyn. That's Quentyn with a Y, of course, on both Tumblr and Twitter. And you can find what I've written for Deadspin this season on Game of Thrones over on Deadspin, the concourse section under Emmett Booth there. I also just wrote an article for Vulture on teasing out parts of Winds of Winter from season 7, certain elements we saw in the last season that we might see coming forward in the books. So that's also up on Vulture under Emmett Booth if you want to check that out. And so that's all pretty representative.
Cool. And last but not least, Val, tell everybody how to find you, not just your YouTube channel, but tell everybody about the Side Effect podcast too.
Oh, yes. First of all, I wanted to say that I've seen the Shitadel on Twitter, and now I'm like, it was you this whole time.
It was me. I was the one with the poop and the knowledge.
There was people in the there was at least one person in the chat. I think it might have been Mark Joseph or Ella Melson was like, "Oh, is that Eliana from the chat is on?" Oh, cool. Yeah, a lot of people had that moment of realization that it was you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, yeah. So I have a podcast as well called The Side Effect, and I do it with other Game of Thrones YouTubers. Actually, yeah, it's Rarest and Chris from Smokescreen, Kevin from the Bad Productions, and Tarzan from Trial by Trivia. And we do it every week. But we also talk about a lot of comic and stuff. We mix it in with Game of Thrones and anything like, in the geekdom, fandom, whatever. So go check that out. It's easy to find. Just a quick Google The Side Effect Podcast. And I also do videos for Game of Thrones on my Because Geek channel. YouTube channel, and I'm playing a few interesting series for the off season. So if you wanted to check those out, please go and subscribe. And you can also find me on Twitter _BecauseVal. No, wait, sorry, the underscore goes after. Yes, because Val _
Right. Yes, please, everyone, like and support all of the community. We have a wonderful community. We all get together and do fun things like this, and it's because we all respect each other. We're not terribly competitive. We like to gang up on you guys and give you all of the information at once, make fun things. So what's next from us is Wednesday we'll be back with Radio Westeros and some other guests, as I said at the beginning of the stream. We'll probably do another one of these in about 2 weeks. We'll do these periodically with Sean and Ashea and the guests, and it won't always be on Monday. We're going to try to rotate a bit. Since we don't have the TV show to kind of force our hand with our schedule, we're going to try to move it around from time to time so different people can make it, because not everyone can make Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard, 11 p.m. GMT, or 12 p.m. GMT, depending on what time of year it is, whether daylight savings time is in effect or not. Mm-hmm. And so be on the lookout for our future streams. We'll be always trying to post them as far in advance as possible. We weren't able to post this one too far in advance this time, but we'll try to get a little better at that. And so we'll see a lot of you guys Wednesday. And of course, our book material is coming out again soon. We'll be doing, we're continuing with our show coverage. We'll be continuing with our book coverage. Lots of stuff coming out from us, so plenty to look forward to. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to Sean. Thanks to Ashea. Mm-hmm. Valar Morgullis. Valar Rereadus. Valar Rewatchus. Valar, see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we are no longer live.